On today's special episode of Homeworthy, we're stepping inside 4 of London's most colorful and personality-filled homes, each a stunning reflection of its owner's creativity. From bold patterns to unexpected color pairings, these interiors are full of life, charm, and a touch of whimsy. First, we'll visit a bright and playful townhouse where layers of stripes, chintz, and florals create a sophisticated yet joyful atmosphere. Next, we step into a home that feels like a storybook come to life, designed by a homeowner who believes in never growing up, embracing bold hues and whimsical details at every turn. Then, we're off to West London, where an Edwardian home is reimagined with vibrant influences from Greece and a love for gardening, blending historic charm with striking color. And finally, we visit a journalist's beautifully curated home, where rich hues and personal mementos tell a story of travel, family, and warmth. You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi Homeworthy, my name is Laura Stevens and welcome to my London home. Come in. So this is a reception room at the front of the house, and I wanted to really create quite a formal but really comfortable aesthetic in this room. And the colour of the walls is super important to me because I painted it when I first came here, and it was kind of like a pearly grey, and it was just really cold. So a few years ago I painted it in this lovely kind of warm stone colour, which is called Clay by Little Green. And then it really sets off colour really well against it. So we have this vintage yellow linen on these chairs, and I was really mindful of just trying to warm everything up and make it feel really layered. And there's a lot of pattern going on in the room. I have all these cushions on the sofa which are set against this stripe, and I really feel like stripe is almost like a neutral, so yeah, I love a stripe, and the pattern works really well against it. It doesn't clash. This is Lulu, she's trying to get involved here. I wanted to create some symmetry as well because I wanted to it really helps to add to that sense of formality. So it's a really nice layout, and the square aspect of this room really allowed me to set it up like a really formal reception room. So we've got a sofa, we've got 2 armchairs facing, it's really convivial, and it's all set around the fireplace. And the fireplace is original. We were really lucky that was there. The cornicing, I think, is a replacement of the original. It was here when we came in, but we're just so lucky with the proportions of this house because the ceilings are really tall and it's got a really grand feeling to it, and I wanted to really engage with that without making it feel like that we're living in a Jane Austen period drama, because I live here with my 3 children and my dog. So it's all about kind of celebrating the grandeur of the house, but being a really comfortable, practical family home. I'm not precious about it at all. As you can see, the dog is everywhere, even though I swore she would never go on any sofas. Obviously, gave up on that after about a week. But the symmetry again is reflected here in the windows. So we've got these really pretty lamps with big shades, and then I love a chintzy fabric, but my husband was like, not too much flower, so I chose this chintzy but quite sort of soft and subtle fabric from Colfax and Fowler for the drapes. And the rest of the items I've really just picked up over the years. I love collecting artwork. I had this really cute plate made of Lulu, which I love. That's one of my favourite things in the room. And that's by a ceramicist called Rabina Jack. And yeah, the rest of the items are just stuff that I've built up over the years, really. It's a lot. I have a lot of copied books. And my husband literally can't believe that I use them, but I really do, because I find interior design books and historical books really inspiring, and I try to look to them instead of kind of Instagram for inspiration, because they really celebrate the tradition of decorating. A lot of these are from all around the world. A lot of them are kind of British traditional style, but I also have, like, there's a book here on Italian architecture, on Australian homes. So yeah, I do really use them, but I have quite a collection. The coffee table is groaning, and I think I might have to do an edit before I get any more. But yeah, it's like they're a great inspiration for my work. The lighting in this room, it was really important to create a really warm, kind of layered approach. There was a central pendant when we moved in, which I actually removed. I think central pendants can look beautiful for decoration, but in here I knew I'd never have it on, and I just wanted to really focus the lighting on wall lights and lights over the pictures and lamps. I think lighting is probably, next to fabric and pattern, my favourite aspect of design. So yeah, I've got some really pretty wall lights with these kind of shell backgrounds, and I had these shades made, again, little pop of yellow to pick up on the yellow that you can see sort of throughout the room. I get a lot of my lamps from eBay. This is an Italian, over here, it's an Italian, quite interesting lamp, and for me, the kind of more crazy and quirky the lamp, the better. I think it's a really nice way of bringing personality to a scheme. And I love the softness of pleated lampshades. I use them a lot, even in the kitchen, throughout the house, because they just create a really kind of soft, warm glow. The lampshades here on these lamps are from Fermoy, and again, I've used their lampshades a lot. They're just beautiful and soft and have a really lovely diffused light which come through. I think in terms of mixing patterns together, that's something which I get asked about a lot, and there aren't really any hard and fast rules, because I have some quite different patterns in here. I think here we've got a really similar print but in different colours, for example, so that works really well. Any floral with a stripe, and you'll see this repeated throughout the house, I just think is a great combination, because it just offsets the kind of floral frilly aspect. So again, I've got a stripe here, but also I like mixing different size prints. So if you have a large print on, say, your drapes, you could do much smaller print on cushions. So yes, it is instinctual, but I wouldn't go for, like, say, two same size, really similar prints. I like to mix them, and that really helps with a sense of layering as well in a room. But yeah, you'll see a lot of stripe and floral, because you just can't really go wrong. And actually this cushion is a stripe with a floral, and yeah, I just love these tassels, which again you'll see throughout the house. So let's go into the snug, which is through here. Come with me. So welcome to our snug. This has gone from when we first moved in, it was the least used room in the house, and now I think, aside from the kitchen, it's the most used room in the house. It was a playroom, and my kids are now 18, 15 and 10, so I knew it wasn't going to be a playroom as such, but I wanted it to be a family space. It used to have a big chimney breast in the middle, which kind of changed the proportions and made it a bit awkward. So we removed the chimney breast totally and put in these two big steel beams. But this room is just blessed with such high ceilings. I knew that that wouldn't really be an issue and you would barely notice them because, yeah, they're just crazily high ceilings. I think the ceilings are the highest in the whole house. And I replaced the chimney breast with this enormous built-in unit. I wanted to create a focal point. There's no fireplace or natural focal point in this room. I knew it wanted to be a TV room, and I mean, there are lots of very clever ways to hide TVs, but sometimes I just think, you know, we're a family, we watch TV, let's just own it and put it in a lovely piece of joinery. And they painted this, I'm not sure if you can capture it on camera, but it's like a lovely gloss blue, and the gloss kind of bounces the light around the room. It's quite a dark room, so that's why I chose the gloss, just to add a bit of reflection and light. Yeah, the drapes are really tall in here, and I chose this lovely kind of soft lemon yellow. I just wanted this room to feel really easy to be in, and I did play with going like really dark and cozy, which I might do at some point, but I just wanted it to feel just really relaxing, and just very informal. And to that end, on this wall at the back, we have this like collection of artwork, which we've built up over, yeah, kind of 20 years. A lot of this artwork was in our previous home, and because it was a lot smaller, our previous homes, there was a lot of little pieces which just seemed to be lost on the walls of this house. So I decided to collate everything, and just I've got everything here from like kids' pictures to some really lovely artists to plates which I've collected on eBay, and some photographs, but it just adds to the informality and kind of relaxed aspect of this room. And then the sofa fits all of us pretty much. It's quite rare these days that we're all in one place, because I have teenagers who are all over the place. But yeah, it's just a really, really nice place to relax. This room we tend to entertain either in the kitchen and dining room or in the reception room. I think because, yeah, I think probably the way this is laid out really lends itself to kind of lounging around and watching TV. So this room is really reserved for sort of hanging out, really. Let's go to the next room, I think. So I'm going to show you my little powder room, or WC as we call it. And this house really lacked a downstairs toilet. It's a big house, and when we did the major part of the renovation of this house, which was about 6 years ago, we knew we wanted to install a downstairs toilet. And I just really didn't want to have a little tiny pokey downstairs loo. We've got the space to make it quite big. And I had this wallpaper in mind I always wanted to use in this kind of space, and it's called Strawberries by Cole & Son, and it's just so pretty. And we added some panelling at the bottom just to make it practical, and so it just gets a little less wear and tear. The ceiling is painted green, and I just wanted it to feel really all-encompassing, this room. If it had been white, it would have been a really different experience. There's a stripy blind again with a pink trim, and this offsets the kind of floral pattern. And I think probably the sink is one of my favourite things in the house. It was a bit of a splurge, but I just love it, and every day I appreciate it. So this is our kitchen diner, and this is where we carried out the most work in the house. And what I fell in love with about this house when we saw it 10 years ago was the stained glass and this really unusual bay configuration of the doors at the back. The only issue with this room was that the side of the house wasn't here, so we installed that glazed roof pitched glass that you can see. And actually this room finished here where the steel was. So it was a great space, but it was really long and narrow and really dark. So we decided to insert the steel and extend this glazing outwards, and it's just really served to flood the whole room with light. And the sun is coming through to really show you what we mean. And I wanted it to feel really natural. I didn't want it to feel like an addition. I wanted to, really have it in keeping with the nature of the house. And the original cornicing was here when we came, and I wanted it to feel almost like an orangery, like a really traditional conservatory. So instead of kind of doing big glazed walls, we added these big windows, these sash traditional windows. And I'm really happy with it, because it's very hard with London kitchen extensions not to make them feel like super modern and contemporary. So having this timber frame glazing was really key to making sure that it was in keeping with the rest of the house. So this has had a big transformation. The kitchen was at the back. We moved the kitchen along this wall here. I was really keen to have no wall units in this central space. I love decorative objects. We actually do use everything on the shelf, so it's not just for decoration. The bowls, the cups, the glasses, it's all a bit of a muddle, but it's just, I love it. It works, and because we use it, it kind of doesn't collect dust, and there aren't many places to have decorative items in kitchens, so it's really nice to have some open shelving. The colour of the units was actually inspired by the glazing. So that kind of sea green, seafoam green is one of my favourite colours. We painted the kitchen in this. I just knew it would be timeless because it works so well, the original stained glass. And we added these super pretty little brass shell handles. They're from Armac Martin. And the other really important thing to talk about in the kitchen, I think, is the island. So the island is just literally like a table. I mean, it's got loads of storage in it, but it doesn't have a hob, it doesn't have a sink. And I really played with, like, should we put the sink here? But actually I wanted it to feel like a piece of furniture. So it's on raised legs, so you can see the floor go all the way through. And sometimes islands can feel really kind of chunky and blocky, and I wanted it to feel really elegant. And I wanted you to see the whole aspect of the room kind of through the island, which is why we raised it on the legs. So the kids often have their breakfast here, but it's just a great prep space. And it also means you don't have your sink with all your washing up and old pans and things on, so it's just kind of clean. And I just love it. We've got quartz on the top because I wasn't allowed marble. So one thing my family were like, you can't have marble, but in my next incarnation I will have marble. But it's a pretty good it's a pretty good replacement for marble. It's like a quartz and it's really durable. And I had this OG edge put on the island as well because I thought that it made it feel a little bit more like a piece of furniture, and that contrasts with the edge, which is a clean square edge on the kitchen. Because again, we are blessed with really tall ceilings in this kitchen, I didn't want to have any spotlights, and that was quite contentious again with my husband at the time because he's a big cook. He was really worried about not having enough light. So we did a range of different lighting. There was no ceiling lights, spotlights at all. We've got these 3 pendants which give you really good task lighting over the island, and then I've got these wall sconces with long arms, and they give you task lighting over the island. But really importantly, I think in kitchens people forget about the low level lighting. So over in the corner here I have this quite unusual decorative really large lamp. We have that on all the time. It's lovely for evenings, it's lovely when you're eating your evening meal. I've also got another table lamp over here in the corner, and in fact I've got another lamp. I've got a lot of lamps in here. I've got this really cute little vintage lamp on the shelf, but it really means you do not miss those spotlights. And in some kitchens where the ceiling is lower, you can't get away from them and you need them. But yeah, I just knew that we could get away with all these different layers of lighting, which is just much softer and warmer, but actually really practical as well in terms of task lighting. So my husband was worried he'd have to kind of make dinner with a head torch, but that's definitely not necessary. Okay, so this, I created this little kind of inbuilt sofa. I wanted somewhere where the family could kind of sit and chat. I was going to do an actual sofa here originally, and then when I saw the space, I thought it might lend itself better to something that was built in. And I did this. Scallops seem to be everywhere now, but I did do this about 6 years ago, and I can't quite remember where I saw the concept, but I just loved it, and I wanted to make it just an interesting, pretty kind of vignette from this side of the kitchen. So yeah, I mean, people lie in here, teenagers lie in here with a hangover. We sit here with a coffee and our breakfast, and it's a really nice aspect because you can see the island, you can see out to the garden. The dog sits here. It's very well used, and a nice kind of, I love bringing some soft additions to kitchens with so many hard surfaces. So it was a nice opportunity to bring in some colour and fabric. And this is one of my favourite paintings in the house. It's really kind of whimsical. It's from an online store called Arty, and the colours of the circus kind of go so well in the room. So I'm an interior designer, and I think when it comes to designing your home, it can be quite tricky. As an interior designer, I can walk into lots of different places and immediately see where I think the property should go, or develop the aesthetic of the client. But because we see so many beautiful things, sometimes it's quite hard to actually hone in on your own specific style. But I think we have quite a chaotic family life, and while I love colour and pattern, I wanted it to be done in quite a sympathetic, calming way for this house. So while there are lots of different colours you'll see throughout the home, they're often quite muted and soft. Sometimes the colour is brought through artwork, but yeah, I'm always thinking about how I could change things, obviously, and I may well change things up, but I think I wanted a continuity of a colour palette, which is really inspired by the original house, so the stained glass, but also the garden. And I can show you the garden now because the palette there is just so pretty and soft and green, and so many of the colours from the garden come through to the house. This is our garden, which is actually quite a good size for a London garden. We're really, really lucky. We rebuilt the wall at the back, but otherwise it's more or less kind of how we found it. We did some planting when we first arrived a few years ago, and I really wanted it to feel like a really kind of country garden in the city, so lots of roses. It's a really summer garden. Green, lots of different shades of green, and there's lots of layers to it. So there's trees, tall trees, smaller trees. It's a work in progress. It's not finished. But I love going to antique fairs, so I'm always collecting like these kind of French tables. So over here is one of mine, and it's really kind of rusty, but I love it, and I put all my pots there. So yeah, it's one of my favourite things, is kind of just being in the garden. I feel like it's not work to me, whereas sometimes I feel, because I'm in interiors all the time, doing stuff in the house can feel an extension of that, but I really find being in the garden just really calming, and it's a lovely kind of mindful place for me to be. I love it. So yes, a lot of the colours inside the house I wanted to really marry with the colours in the garden. So welcome to our bedroom. This is the principal bedroom in the house, and it's not the largest bedroom, but it is the most peaceful because it overlooks the garden. So I knew I wanted this to be our bedroom. It's really light. It's just got a really lovely view onto all the back gardens of our road, which I love having a nosy in. And we did quite a lot of work to this room. We installed these wardrobes, which are actually supposed to be for both of us, but ended up just being for me. My husband has his stuff in the spare room. And I lined them with this pretty fabric because I find that just helps to stop that kind of blocky feel that these big built-in wardrobes could have. I want it just to look sort of pretty and soft. The fireplace was here originally, so again, we were really lucky to have that. And this fabric on the curtains was really key to the scheme, and it's one of my favourite prints. It's from GP&J Baker, and actually I found it on eBay as a remnant, and unfortunately, fortunately, I didn't quite have enough. So I decided to kind of top and tail it with this pink velvet at the top and the bottom, which is actually a really sweet feature, and it has this kind of grand tassels from Samuel & Sons. But yeah, this is just such a sort of typical traditional print, and it's an unusual colourway. I just love the kind of soft pinks and greens and the birds. And then I knew I wanted wallpaper in here, but I knew it also needed to be calming for a bedroom. So we have this like really subtle pinstripe wallpaper from Colfax and Fowler that sits really nicely against the curtains. This is a really nice place to sit and contemplate life, looking over the garden. It's this little mid-century sofa which I picked up for, about £50 I think in an antiques fair quite a few years ago. And then finally my dressing table is over here. It has this really oversized, kind of quite glamorous mirror from Julian Chichester, and again that just reflects the garden, so that's really nice to see that when you're sitting there. And it's got an interesting shape. This is a bit of a crazy lamp. It's kind of like a Regency Hollywood lamp, which I got on eBay I think for about 20 quid. And yeah, it's just a really peaceful, calm haven away from the kids, and we can go and see the ensuite next door because that's kind of in the space, which is really nice because it means that the girls can't use it. So we can go and have a look at that now. This is our ensuite bathroom. There wasn't room for a bath, so to compensate for that, we did a really big, generous walk-in shower. And this lovely vanity, which isn't antique, but it's got the feeling of a kind of French Parisian vanity. We used unlacquered brass, which from Water Monopoly, which is I've tried to use throughout the house. It really develops this lovely aged patina, which I think this gets better with age. And I don't really, I clean it, but I don't clean it until it's shiny because I just love the patination on it. The tiling's quite interesting. The tiler was, very, very patient, but I wanted it to have this almost like a 1940s European kind of feel in here. I want it to be tiled from top to bottom, and it has this pencil tile across the top and a dado, and it also has a skirting, and then the checkerboard floor kind of gives it quite a glamorous feel, and then the shape of the mirrors is quite kind of Art Deco. The mirrors are from an English company called Vaughan. And it's a real sanctuary, actually, this bathroom. I absolutely love it. So the bathroom is the original size. It had like a cubicle in, which I wanted to remove. So I wanted it to feel more open. So it felt like it didn't feel as spacious as this. So we actually built, instead of a built-in cubicle, we built this half wall, which is really successful in terms of creating a shower space, but keeping the sense of space and size. And yeah, it's just much more aesthetically pleasing than kind of lots of doors of glass. So if you come upstairs, the first of the bedrooms to show you is my youngest daughter's room. So come in. So this is my youngest daughter Sky's bedroom, and we worked on this together, this room. She is an interior designer in the make, and she was really keen to be involved. So to give her an element of choice, and I often do this with my young clients, is it's really important they feel involved and they're making decisions, but I try to give them edited options. So I was actually really pleasantly surprised that she chose this wallpaper, which is a William Morris design, called Daisy, which is the name of one of my other daughters. But it's just really classic, and I love that blue and white colour scheme. And we really took that and ran with it. So we did the stripy blind, and again another stripe and floral, and it has a really pretty little bead trim. We did obviously lots of blue and white cushions, and the paintwork is all in this kind of like a Wedgwood blue, which is really nice. The wardrobe is again in this sort of Wedgwood blue and has lovely kind of white trim. And again, I've added fabric to the back of the doors just to bring in some softness. And the same fabric is on this really cute little lamp, which is from Anthropology, and we had this lampshade made for it. And in fact, this is quite interesting, this section of the room, because she's only 10, and I knew that she would be growing into, she'd want some kind of dressing area. So there wasn't room for it because of the radiator. So I decided to build this kind of shelf, which almost like a console with a mirror on it. So when she's older, she can use this as her dressing table. But other pieces in the room which are quite important. So we did bring in some yellow to kind of throw in there with the blue and white, and make it feel kind of youthful and fun. This is a piece we found on eBay and I had painted. And then very importantly, her bed, which is quite a thing. We had this lovely canopy made because she is only 10. This would be really easy to take down when she's older, but she loves it, and she loves kind of going in and feeling really cozy and enclosed. And it's got this beaded trim on it again. She's probably got the best bed in the house, actually. It's the most comfortable, and she actually does make it like this every day with every pillow. I can't imagine where she gets that from. So we've got, oh my goodness, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fireplaces in the house. So this isn't a working fireplace, but this is a really particularly pretty fireplace actually. When we bought the house, the original tiles were really cracked and sort of falling apart. So we did actually replace the tiles on the hearth and on the sides. But yeah, the fireplace is original, and we're just really lucky because it does really give the room so much personality and character. And a really nice focal point as well. This is my middle daughter's bedroom, Tessa's room, and we're right at the top of the house here. So it's very peaceful. It's really, really high. So you have this like amazing view of all the gardens down below. Because this was an addition, this is a loft room that was added on, it doesn't have a fireplace, it doesn't have the kind of natural character, so we needed to add it. So we added it through the wallpaper, and actually again she chose this, she was very specific, but yeah, she luckily chose this really soft, subtle floral print, and this is from Colfax and Fowler. And actually we recently did a makeover because she inherited this iron bed, and while I love the traditional look of iron beds, they're actually really uncomfortable to sit up, so to sit up against. So we had this headboard made and kind of tied on, which is a really kind of budget friendly way of making it sort of soft and usable. And then we also did this matching valance, and underneath here there's all her socks and storage you can see down there, and this really pretty quilt we added as well. And she's a big kind of sewer and collector, so we added a bookshelf for all her bits and pieces, and this really pretty vanity, which actually is just from IKEA, but we found this really cute brass mirror on here, and it's just a really, she's quite a manic character, so I was quite surprised that she chose such a sort of soft, peaceful scheme. So yeah, I was really pleased with her choice. So no, this and the bathroom, so it's strange because there's lots of little steps in between. So there's 3 floors, but then in between each floor there are like steps leading up, so there's almost like mezzanines. So it's great because it really gives a sense of space, so nobody feels like they're kind of next door to each other. So my other daughter's room, in fact my husband's office, which we'll go to in a minute, is on the same floor, but it's so far apart and up these kind of mini stairs that you get this amazing sense of space, which is why we just loved the house, because it's just unusual in a Victorian house to really have that sense of space with the stairs and the width of the hallways as well. So yeah, we're really, really lucky to be here for sure. So we're still on the top floor here, and we had this like huge vast wall which I just wanted to do something with. It just ended up having loads of handprints on it when it was painted, so I decided to put this wallpaper, which is a vintage print from William Morris, and it just serves to give this hallway some identity. Hallways can be really tricky to decorate because they can just feel really transitional and there's no focal points. So I created one really with this wallpaper, and it's so good at hiding handprints and dirt. I mean, whereas before it was a bit of an issue. And we also, this was an antique mirror from our old house, and there wasn't really anywhere to put it, but actually it looks quite nice here, and again gives the hallway a focal point. So coming up to my husband's office. Come through here. So this is the smallest room in the house, but it is a lovely room. It's very, very light and bright. When my husband does work from home, this is where he works because it's right at the top of the house, away from the chaos. And we painted it. This is a colour I'd been wanting to use, and it felt like this was the right room to use it in. It's called Smoked Trout by Farrow and Ball, and it's this lovely kind of dusky terracotta pink. And because this is a small room, I just thought, let's just go for it. And although it's quite dark, it doesn't actually feel dark. And I found this desk, which again I had painted in my favourite colour. It's blessed with a really cute little fireplace in here. It's got a chair, but although this is primarily his office, I needed it to also act as a guest room. So in the corner I had made this, I guess it's a day bed. And it's quite clever because it looks like a kind of sofa. I had the headboard made in a fabric from Mulberry Home and had it kind of cut into the eaves, so it looks really purposeful, with these bolsters either side. But it's actually like a day bed, so you can pull it out and it turns into a double bed. But when it's not used, it's just quite a nice place to read and escape from the madness. The rug on the floor is actually part of a collaboration which I recently launched with a company called Bombay Sprout, and I designed several rugs with them for a collection, and I named them after my daughters. So this is called the Tessa rug, and it's in this lovely like mustard and aubergine colourway, and it just sits really well in this room. It really adds another layer of colour and pattern and coziness. So the desk, I really struggled to find. I wanted it to be an antique, but I just couldn't find the right size. So I actually found it, it was bare wood, and it was from a company called Scrumble Goosey in the UK. I think they do ship internationally as well. But the nice thing about it is that you can have it painted any colour. So I actually got them to paint it with this kind of like Swedish antique detail with the blue line, and it just fitted perfectly in the space. It's actually a really generous sized desk. It's actually a really lovely place to work up here. I'm not quite sure why my office isn't up here, because it's so nice and quiet. But yeah, it's a really lovely space to work. So what makes a house a home? I think the answer to that has to be the people in it. To make a beautiful house is one thing, but to really live in it and to have your own pieces and to make it feel personal to the people who live in it really make it a home.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Rosalind. Welcome to my home in London. Let me show you around.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
My name's Rosalind Miller and this is my home in London. My background is actually, I would say, as a scientist. So I started out my career as a chemist, and I later went on to do a master's and PhD in public health, and that led me into a career in academia, where I worked as an assistant professor at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, which is an amazing institution and a very beautiful building if you ever get the chance to visit London. I'm not an artist. I spent most of my childhood doing sports and playing really competitive tennis. I wasn't good at art, but during the process of this renovation that we just completed, I've really sort of found this creative side and unleashed all of my creative ideas and things that are in my head and colours, and almost put it onto paper, into the house as it were. But given my background, I almost find it a bit of a surprise to be sat here talking to you guys about interiors and my home. Welcome to my beloved hallway, which is where we store all of the coats and shoes. And as you will notice, they are not on show. So when we renovated, I said before, my number one thing was that I wanted all of the hallway clutter that we normally used to be tripping over the minute we came in, hidden away. And so I designed, and my builders built, this beautiful cupboard. And I'm just all about the function. We could sit down and put our shoes on, which is here, and everything is stored in here. So originally, I obviously had visions of everything being stored, and it looked like we have so many coats that there wasn't actually going to be enough space for coats and shoes. So my builders ended up doing this really clever trick where we put in a little like high up thing that you pull down, and that enables us to have all this extra shoe space under there, which I think is a really neat trick. This area where I am actually used to be a kitchen. So you used to come in and the kitchen was all on this level. And when you do an extension in a Victorian terrace, you create this notorious middle room that is a sort of thoroughfare. And people have done all sorts with them. Some people make it into a cozy little snug because they're often a little bit dark because it's in the middle of the house. And I just knew that the coat storage was a massive priority. So we have got that. And when we go down, you'll see what I've put in the rest of the space that used to be the kitchen. So another little thing that I've got in here is this little cubby. I wanted an old piece of furniture because I just think that mixes things up and I don't like everything to be too shiny. So I love the green of this. I found it on eBay, and then we ended up, I got this before this whole section was built, so they were able to build the staircase and everything, so it fits absolutely perfectly. And that's where, you know, we keep our work IDs and school lanyards, keys. Everybody's got their own cupboards. There's one drawer dedicated for hair, a hairbrush and hairbands, because hairbands are always going missing. So the idea of having a dedicated space, my hope was that we would know where to find them. So that's just a really handy thing that makes family life that little bit easier. These little candle holders I think are really adorable. They're from an online vintage store called Wallace Vintage, and I've bought a few things. She's amazing at lighting. She sources really sweet things. And then I've just popped in the brightest pink candles I can find. One of my favourite things to do in London is go down to Columbia Road on a Sunday where they have the flower market. There's an amazing cake shop called Lily Vanilli, so don't miss that. And then there's a gorgeous candle shop that has all these little coloured glasses, vases to put flowers in, and the most amazing array of candles you've ever seen. So I love to go there, and I've got pretty much a whole drawer in my kitchen of every colour that you can imagine. Although the house is finished there, it is still a work in progress. If I waited for the house to be finished to invite you guys in, you would never come. So we are in London. My home is based in North London. I am a born and bred Londoner, and I actually grew up not far from here in a really beautiful Victorian house. And this house is also from the Victorian era and not too far from my mum, which is nice. So the home, as I said, it's a period property dating back to the Victorian era. And I'd say that the style of the home is actually quite traditional. I grew up, as I said, in a Victorian property, and I really love those features. The house actually, it's an end of terraced, so it's a little bit different from the others in the terrace, and it actually was a commercial property. So I was standing outside early on when we had recently bought the house, and a man stopped me and said, "Do you know about the history of your house?" I said, "No," and he said, "It actually used to be a bakery, and I used to play with the baker's son." So although it is a period property, because it was used for commercial purposes, a lot of the original features weren't here. So there aren't lovely fireplaces, there wasn't any ceiling coving, and we did try to put in a few of those things. But although the style is traditional, I try to add my own little take and give it a little bit of a modern twist by using colour. And as we go around the house, that will become quite evident. Now I'll take you down to the rest of the middle room. So then we're going to go down to the stairs, note the minty risers in my favourite colour, into the rest of the middle room. As I said, this all used to be on one level, and the house actually used to end here. So this was the kitchen, and it was really dark and it was quite small. And it felt like, for the size of the house, the living area, which was this kitchen and living room, was quite small compared to the rest of the house. So that was our thinking behind doing an extension. And as I said, what to do with the middle room is an age-old question, I think, for people doing extensions. And we've got our hallway cupboards that I talked about, but what we ended up doing is putting this beautiful piano here. So this piano is from the house I grew up in, and I think it's really beautiful. I'm not a major piano player. I tinkered with it a little bit as a child. My kids tinker with it a little bit as children, and I think it's just a really nice thing to have in the heart of the home, and obviously it's really nostalgic because it's from my childhood. And we designed all of the dimensions and all of the space to make sure it fit. And then on the other side is my desk and my work area. Thought about maybe putting a sofa here or some chairs just to chill out and relax. But actually we've got quite a lot of seating in the kitchen and in the living room, so that felt unnecessary. And I don't really like the idea of being locked away in a room, squirreled away from everything else doing my work. I actually really like being in the heart of the home. I'm right next to the kitchen. I can make endless teas and coffees. My kids play computer games here. They do their homework. It's just a really useful space. Or if you just want to jump on and do a quick email, but the kids are about, so I feel like it just works. And it's not ideal when I'm on a call and my kids are standing behind as I'm on a Zoom call. That's maybe the downside of having your space there. But it's really functional. And so this is like my area. So I've got pictures of my friends and the kids, and this notice board was made for me by this lovely small business, this lady that I found on Instagram called Handmade by Harriet, and she does these custom notice board, and obviously I got her to make me one with rainbow ribbons, and it just, every time I sit there and I'm working, I've got my rainbow glass, I've got my really cute notice board with lots of people that I love on it, and I've got this really pretty picture too, because let's be honest, it is always grey and raining in London, so it just makes me feel happy when I'm working. So as you can see, I've collected a few little things that I've put on display here. The colour glass, I just can't get enough of it, and I hope to maybe one day for this collection to maybe splurge over to this side. But it's stuff I picked up, some of it in a thrift store in Sweden, some of it here, some have been gifts, and I really like just arranging them in a colour coded series, and it's just very aesthetically pleasing. And then on this side, as I said, I would like the glass collection to grow, but for now I've just put some other favourite little bits and bobs that I've collected. I got this really cute tea set in a shop in Bordeaux on a trip with some girlfriends, and I bought it, I originally had 8, and I bought it back on the Eurostar, carried it, and then as I got to St Pancras International, the bottom of the bag opened, or it was quite close to the floor, and the bottom bits all smashed. So every time I look at it, I think, oh, it could have been more. But luckily, I've still got a few in my favourite colour, and just some other little bits. This really cute, this tea set was actually a woman, a really lovely woman who makes prints. She saw it in a local charity shop. She's one of my Instagram friends, and she tagged me and said, oh, Rainbow Rosin would really love this. And I messaged her back, I said, would you get it for me if I send you the money? And she did, so that's the good side of social media, I guess. So welcome to the kitchen. As I said, the kitchen used to be in the room where we just were, and where I'm standing, actually, it used to be an internal courtyard. So the layout was pretty quirky before. There was, from about here, this whole left side was a corridor, and that from the entranceway that there was a door, and you walked down this quite thin, wasn't super usable space, quite thin corridor, which led to an office at what is now the back of the patio. So this area, you would step out from the kitchen into this internal courtyard, it was not super inspiring. It was just a piece of concrete, really. And then there was the office, as I said, at the end. And now it's really, our kitchen before was a little bit dark. It didn't get loads of light, and the glass roof has just let the outside in. When the roof was first installed, I honestly felt like when I stepped from the middle room into the kitchen, I felt like I was going outside. So this is where we spend the majority of our time. It's really lovely to just be bright, and even on a grey day like today, it feels bright and it's just a nice space to be in. So one of my favourite things in the kitchen is the storage cupboards, which I'm sounding like a bit of a broken record now. But as I said, it was one of the first things I basically think, how can I hide my kids' stuff? So there's one for adults and one for kids. And this one, it's so many board games, all of their arts and crafts, because those things I found they were always typically being used at the kitchen table. So I didn't want it away in their rooms, and they want to be down here. They want to be spending time in the main area, but I didn't want it all in show. So these are beautiful. I just love the wavy handles. This beam up here, when it arrived, it was a rusty red colour, and the roof had been installed. The roof was made factory finished in RAL 6019, which is the best colour. It's the colour of the beams and the roof and the windows and the doors and the tap. And green and red isn't a combination to me that is super obvious. Maybe it is to other people. But when I saw the rusty red with the pastels, I thought it went really nicely. So a little tribute to that red beam, I decided to paint the wavy handles in a pop of red. And I think it looks really sweet amongst the pinkies and the pastels that are in the rest of the room. And then it brings you into, this is our dining area. And I love the idea of having a seating bench. Just, you know, people are always lounging around, and you've got lots of little spots where you can sit, and you can, sometimes my kids and their friends, they're just all hanging out on the walls, or you can sit there. You could read a book, you can scroll your phone, you can just chill out there. And one of the number one things I wanted in our kitchen was, I'd seen these massive pivot windows, and the minute I saw one of those, I thought, yes, really want one of those. I love the idea of just having one huge window that you can open, and then from the inside, swing your legs over and just hop out into the garden. So we've managed to make that a reality. I can just show you. Sometimes the door's a little bit stiff and it doesn't make me look very good, but let's hope, yeah. So it's this huge window, and in summer, we just leave it open. And again, it's connecting with the outside, and you get to look out onto beautiful greenery. And I just love that. This is my favorite spot to sit and have a cup of tea and just have a few minutes daydreaming, looking out the window and relaxing. So as you can see, we've got this checker floor, which originally I think people think, I don't know what they think, but they don't think that I painted it, which I did. The floor was one of the decisions. There are so many decisions when you're doing a renovation. It really is overwhelming. But the kitchen floor was something I just could not decide on. I went back and forth. At one point, I really wanted a concrete floor. It was quite pricey. We couldn't have plain, thick wooden planks, which I think are really nice because there's underfloor heating as well. I played with the idea of cork because I thought that would be really nice and cozy underfoot. And yeah, just went back and forth. And in the end, I had seen a checkerboard floor being painted, probably online. And I thought, I have to do that. I'm going to do that. So I ordered the cheapest engineered wood that I could possibly find, because then I didn't feel bad painting over it. And I got it unfinished, because obviously painting over a lacquered or finished surface is pretty tricky. So got it unfinished, had it installed, and that was a bit of a scientific experiment. Spent quite a long time drawing out the lines, doing the most meticulous masking tape. At one point, I think I was going to do the checked blue, but I think it's classic. It's an off-white with a little pinky undertone. And it's a miracle that it worked out, to be honest, because I didn't really know what I was doing. I started on this side, and then I did that side, and where the checks converged in the middle, because you imagine if every little check is a millimeter going out of sync, at some point when you converge your lines, you're probably going to have a little bit of a situation. Luckily, and I didn't plan this, that situation is under the dining table. So if you're going to try this yourself, then maybe have your checks converge in a spot that isn't that obvious. Coming into the main bit of the kitchen, the marble, I just wanted marble. I think in our last apartment we had a quartz worktop, and there's just something about natural stone that is so beautiful. So when we got the chance to choose a new worktop, I wanted to give marble a go. And I know that I was worried, or people worry about the upkeep and if it scratches and if it stains. And the first week when we moved in, I was like, no, don't put that there, don't do that, that's the marble, sort of going around with the thing. Then I realized that that wasn't really me, and I could never live like that. So just let it be. I'm like, oh, they have it in Italy everywhere, and they have it in cafes, and they have it in restaurants, and I'm sure if it is good enough for them and it lasts many, many years, I'm sure it'll be fine, and it's absolutely fine. And I don't worry about it at all. It's part of the way it ages, it's supposed to be part of the beauty, so just embrace that. I absolutely love the veining. I really wanted something super veiny, and as you can see, the veining in here is actually a little bit green, so that's why I chose this one, and it goes really well with the rest of the colours. And we ended up taking it up the backsplash, so it needed 2 slabs of marble to cover the whole area. And had we not done the backsplash, it would have felt like such a waste of the marble. So we tried to eke out, you have to buy the stone, so you want to make it worthwhile. So we tried to eke out every last bit of it using as much as possible. And I think it's really striking, and it's a lovely feature. So when it came to designing the kitchen, I've got a friend who's a designer, and I said, where do I start? How do I know what sizes to do and where I should have cupboards and where I should have drawers? And this is not really something that I've done before. And she gave me the most amazing piece of advice that I pass on to anyone that's doing a renovation. And that is, write down everything that you own that you want in your kitchen and plan in advance. Do you want that in a drawer? Do you want that in a cupboard? And use that as your guide. And that's exactly what I did, literally down to the sort of napkins, So a friend of mine had bought me these really beautiful napkins for my 40th birthday that are embroidered with our names, and some say guest, and they're really, really sweet. So I put on my little drawing, one drawer, napkins, just because I knew that there would be a place for those. There's even a drawer for Tupperware and all those sort of ugly plastic things that you don't want anyone to see but are necessary. And it's worked out so well. It's just so practical. That's the thing that I really appreciate about being able to do your own renovation. It's so functional and it really works for you, and it's just so practical. So the dishwasher is right next to where all of the plates and bowls are stored. All of the cooking utensils are just in a drawer right under. I'm a big fan of drawers because obviously you can pull it out, and in a cupboard, the stuff at the back is a bit tricky. So wherever it's been possible, I've put drawers. And the other thing I really wanted was a breakfast station. I didn't want all the clutter, the toaster, the coffee stuff. I didn't really want all of that to be on show because we're not super tidy, and I don't think that we could keep it perfect all the time. So I wanted that behind doors. So this is like a little breakfast station. I mean, it's not perfectly tidy, but it's got all of our appliances that I don't really want them on show all the time. My daughter loves organising things, so she's always putting she made me take her to IKEA so she could buy all these storage containers, because we watched this program called Sort Your Life Out, and she was so excited. That weekend we were in IKEA buying all of the storage containers so that we could make our life look very organised. And that's a bit of a hobby of hers, thankfully for me. But that's just, so that's our breakfast area, and every morning, and then we just close it and it's out of sight. I also wanted to have a little shelf because it's sweet to just, again, bring in little more pops of colour, store just pretty things that make you smile every day. I've got a few little vases and pictures, candles, just things that look nice and make the space a bit more smiley. So originally, when I was choosing a sink and a tap, I was really in love with this brass tap from Devol, and it was an aged brass. It's just the most beautiful brass thing you've ever seen. But to get that, and then I think it also came, they also have a little hot water tap in the brass as well. So at first I thought, oh, wouldn't it be so sweet to have that brass and the little hot water brass? But those taps are eye-wateringly expensive. And as I'm sure anyone who does a renovation know, most of the money goes on the labor. And when it comes to the point of putting in all of your things and finishing off, there's not really a huge amount of budget left. So I thought, okay, if I can't have the brass, I don't want an imitation brass. I don't want one that's not as good, because every time I looked at it, I would just think, oh, but it's not the Duval one. So I ended up going for this super fun, colourful minty, and I'm sure it's finished in the same Rowell colour as the rest of the doors and windows, because it's when it arrived, I held it up. I was like, yeah, that's a perfect match with the door. And it's really cute and it fits in. And it was not super expensive either. So one of my favourite features, I just had this vision of having this kitchen and having a double door, and I had this vision of myself opening and flinging the doors out and sort of dancing off into the garden. Obviously, I only ever open this door and walk out of it like this, but you know, the idea was there, and I think it's very pleasing to have a double door. I think it just looks nice. A really nice company, they made the doors, it's made out of timber. I really wanted timber for some reason. So the pivot window and the doors, those were made by one company, and the roof is actually made of aluminium. But because they're finished in the same colour, you can't really tell that they're different materials. So this light is another one of my end of renovation budget dwindling hacks. It's quite an iconic PH5 light, and in these pastel colours, and my friend sent it me, she said, oh my goodness, this light would look amazing in your house. But it was £600. So I thought, that's just not going to happen. So I actually bought kind of a knockoff, just a plain white one online, and then I just painted it in the same pastel-y colours, and most of them I already have. I've got the biggest array of all of this seating bench. It lifts up for storage, and I've got loads of paint in there. So I already have most of the paint, and then I just painted it in an eggshell paint, which is a little bit of a sheen, and also it can just be wiped clean because a lot of dust kind of settles on here. And it's really pretty. And it was quite an event though, in order to get it over the dining table. I feel like doing renovations is just constant problem solving. And all the time, you know, I'd come to site, I was always here like checking on things, putting my paints on the wall, like, hey, what's going on today? And there was always a problem. Like, oh, this drain run isn't going to work, and the building control won't sign it off, and this is a problem, and that is a problem. And I'd always joke and be like, okay, solutions, not problems. I don't want to hear the problems. But I always envisaged having the light over the dining table. And then obviously once the glass roof was in, the builders are looking at me saying, so where exactly is your light? How are we going to hang? We can't hang your light over a glass roof. I was like, So we came up with this really cool system. My husband's first degree was in engineering, so I'm pretty sure that this was his mastermind. And yeah, it worked out, and I'm really happy that we could fulfill my vision. I toyed with what art to put up in the walls here and had lots of ideas, but ended up I picked up this, during the course of the renovation, I picked up this little print from the Tate Modern, and I love it. It's called Colours of London. So obviously it fits in with the colourful home, but also I just love London so much. I'm such a diehard Londoner. I will never leave. And I feel like, you know, some people identify as their job or as their nationality or as, you know, various things, or as a sport or something like that. But I really identify as a Londoner, and I just love that this is colours from across London. I really like the parakeets one. So we live quite near Hampstead Heath, where you see lots of parakeets. And yeah, I just love that it's all little bits of London, some parts that I know well and some parts that I don't know as well, but it's a sweet picture. So in terms of my personal style, I would say that I just never grew up, and I'm a little bit like a big kid. And I just embrace the things that I love. I don't really care what anybody else thinks. And it's obviously such a privilege to have the opportunity to do a renovation. And I don't want a cookie cutter home. I've really tried to put my personality into the house, and As I said, my background is as a scientist, and as a child I was more of an athlete. I was not good at art. I could not even draw a stick person. So I didn't even really know that I was a creative person, and doing this renovation sort of sparked this inner creativity that I didn't know was there. And I've really just let loose and chosen things and colours that I love to have on display and had a lot of fun with it. Okay, let's come out into the patio garden. So this space actually used to be the office. It was the weird corridor, an office which went from the back wall up to about here, and it had that entrance, which that's a sliding door that goes onto the street. And then, as I said, the internal concrete courtyard that went all the way in where the kitchen is. And then after we finished our building work, it was a massive ditch, essentially, and just full of rubble and dirt. And it was hard to imagine that it could ever be anything else. But interestingly, although we actually reduced the square footage of our interior through doing the extension, it feels like we have double the living space. But actually, if you look at the square footage, because the corridor was very long, apparently the corridor, when you look at the numbers, the corridor and the office had more floor space than our kitchen. So we actually increased the size of our garden by, I think, about 5 square meters. So that kind of blows my mind. But I had all of these things that I wanted to fit into the garden. And it was just, as I said, this blank ditch, and I didn't know where to start. So this really lovely husband and wife local team was recommended to me by a friend, and I thought, you know what, it's worth just paying a little bit of money to get a design for the garden, because I'm so out of my depth here. I've no idea what I'm doing. So I had all of these ideas. I was like, I want to have seating, and I want to have flowers, and I just want to see green everywhere, and I want it to be really whimsical. And, you know, I had this huge list, and cobbles would be great, and, you know, just can you just do something and fit all of that in? And then sent them about 500 inspiration pictures. So like, yeah, if you could just, with those 20 square meters, just fit all that in, that would be great. Oh yeah, and my husband wants a bike shed, and my brother gave me this barbecue, so I guess we need to house that somewhere. So it was a really big list, and they did it. They made this amazing design, and they used all of these little tips and tricks, and honestly, it was such a good use. It was a few £100. It was really good use of money to get this design, because I would have probably just done something, you know, straight. It needed, the way that the levels were to the street, it needed a couple of steps at some point. So they did all these little tricks, like they've done it in this shape, and apparently that creates an illusion of more space. And there's little paths, like some steps to the bike shed and some concrete steps out. And apparently when you have paths as well, it looks like you're going somewhere. And that again just gives you the illusion that the garden is bigger than it actually is. And it's been planted up, and it's exactly, obviously it was only planted this spring, I think. So it hasn't really had time to grow, and the walls are not yet completely covered, but I think that it will grow, and it's a really nice spot to relax. Or the other thing that I wanted, that was the number one of my list, was this area here is in total sun trap. So I said we need to have seating for me to just sit in the sun and have a coffee and just like bask and get all the vitamin D, because as I said, London is very grey and I love it so much, but the weather really doesn't play ball. So again, I can't take any credit for this. It was the idea of the garden designers. They had the idea. So as I said, it was full of rubble when they came to it. When they came to first look, I think they were a bit sort of like, oh, what are we going to do here? And they had the idea of, for the seating, these gabions. So gabions are these metal cages, and then they filled it with all the rubble in the garden. So all of this concrete, you can see broken down concrete, that is actually from our build, which is really cool because it's, you know, reusing the materials and it was already here. And then obviously, because I'm me, I got my RAL 6019 in a exterior paint and went around and painted the metal cages minty so that it matched the back of the house, because I'm ridiculous, but I love it. And yeah, it's just enough. I'm not a gardener. I can't be dealing with mowing the lawn. So I love just having a little bit of flowers and greenery to look at. My youngest daughter, she loves playing in the mud, so that's her dedicated pot to just come out here and dig and play with snails. And as you can see, she's put mud everywhere. It's all over the patio, like ruining it. But she has a lovely time out here. And it's honestly, it's not super big, but it's enough for us. So obviously you can see that this is all part of the new extension. And it was built in London stock brick. So this is actually a conservation area. So there was so many hoops to jump through in order to satisfy the conservation committee and the local planning and all various groups. We actually started the renovation at the top of the house because we had applied for a 2-story extension. So you can see there's another little room up there, which is also in the new like London stock bricks. They're reclaimed bricks, so I think they fit in the area really nicely. But you can see what's been built and what was there originally. But actually on our first planning application, the room at the top there was rejected. So we decided to, and it said the reason was that it was not in keeping with the local area, but every single terrace house, every single corner house on the terrace has one. So we thought, I feel like we've got a pretty good case here to appeal. So we put together an appeal, marking out all of the houses on the street. Like this is where the science comes in, and put it in. And it's 3 to 6 months, the planning appeal. It was so we started the build and we started at the top. We're like, oh yeah, no, by the time we get down, we'll have had our answer. And finally, the height of the kitchen depended on the story on top. So we couldn't really start, because if we weren't going to get the second floor extension, we would have lost quite a bit of height in the extension, which we didn't really want to do. So that was a huge hold up and it was really stressful, but we got it. The appeal was overturned in the end. So I feel like you often don't hear success stories of planning, so it's worth appealing. And yeah, I also painted the plastic black gutters minty because why not? So we moved into this home in 2020 in the middle of the 2 COVID lockdowns. We quickly managed to buy and sell in between, and we were living around the corner before in a smaller apartment, and we were keen to get a little bit more space. And what I loved about this house was the location. So it's a really great location. It's on a really cute street. We live in a gorgeous neighborhood that I didn't want to leave, which is where we were before. It's got such a beautiful community. We've got so many friends. My kids go to local schools. So I really wanted to keep that, best friends with the guys in the local coffee shop. So we wanted to stay in this area. And this home, people really were not falling over themselves to buy it. So it was in a livable state, but the layout was a little bit odd. But we could instantly see, if we just moved this and added this on, and we could add a bathroom in here, and this room's really large, but maybe we could squeeze in a bathroom and that might be a better use of space. So we took it on as a project, and with the aim of creating something that would work for how we lived. The idea of just moving into something that somebody else has made, it might work for them, but it might not work for you. So that was one of the real appeals of renovating and just making the space work for our family life. Now let's head back inside and I'll show you the living room. Hi. So I'm going to put this enormous pocket door, which I think is very cool, to a side and come into our living room. So this room, I would say, is a work in progress. There is not much on the walls, and there will be a coffee table one day. There's quite a few bits that aren't finished, but we're getting there slowly. And this is just the TV is in here. So although we've tried to disguise it in one of those frame TV where it looks like a picture, that is the main drawer of this room for our kids. They probably spend the most time in here. It's east facing, so it gets the morning light. So it's not super bright, but it's quite a cozy space, and I wanted it to be decorated in, I think there's two things that you can do if something's not really bright. You can go for something dark and like embrace the cozy, but the dark colours just don't work for me. So I've gone for something like quite muted, although it's painted this whole bookcase in a rainbow. It's quite a muted rainbow, and I actually find it really calming in here. When we first bought the house, as I said, that was the kitchen. We had our dining table here. We lived in the house for 2 years as it was while we got all of the permissions and thought about the new layout and thought about what we wanted to do. So we had our dining table here, and this wall was a bookcase. But it was slightly piecemeal. It was like in 3 different sections, and then it came around the corner as well. And then there was a sort of weird door with half glass. So we opened up the entrance, so it's felt a little bit more grand. We added back in all of the period features, like all of the coving and the picture rail. None of that was here. And then we just rebuilt a bookcase because I really love the idea of having a wall of books. We already had quite a lot of books to start with. My mum's house is essentially just a library. I have some books that belong to my grandparents, like all of the old Puffin editions, quite a few that I've put up at the top just so that they don't get damaged, are from them. And I'm not quite there yet, but I think we've got like 1 or 2 sections still to fill. And I know that sometimes with bookcases people do all these really cool styling things, but I think I'm more of a big picture person, and when it comes down to the tiny little details, that's not necessarily my forte, and I just love the idea of having a wall of books. And then I didn't have to do any like faffy styling, and it's a library. Apparently, if it's 1,000 books or more, it's considered a library. So I think that's a pretty cool thing to have in your living room. I don't actually come in here that often. It's maybe on like Saturday nights, the kids want to watch Strictly Come Dancing, or sometimes after school they just want to chill out. So I just wanted to have a really comfy sofa to spread out on, and I just went for something really neutral so that it could just sort of blend in, and then popped on a load of colourful cushions to make it extra comfy and give a little splash of colour and personality. And yeah, there's a lot of lounging that goes on there. As you can see, the bookcase is a sort of rainbow, and the top colour of the bookcase is in keeping with the ceiling. And I painted upstairs in the spare room a pink ceiling. So we did the house from the top up. So the way that it worked out, a lot of things that went on at the top fed into things that then happened later, or informed decisions that happened later. And I painted the spare room ceiling this bright pink colour that I'll show you later. And a pink ceiling is just a great idea, I've learned. So it gives off a little glow. It's really warm, and I just thought I need more pink ceilings in my life. So this colour is actually called Serene Peach, and all of the colours, pretty much most of the colours in my home, are from a small British brand called Yes Colours, and they're quite a new company, and their paint comes in pouches, which is really cool because paint, obviously you've got these big tins and then it's really hard to dispose of and it's really bad for the environment, and their pouches are actually recyclable. So they've got they've got really great colours, if you love colour, really vibrant, really a whole range of stuff that you wouldn't find in perhaps more traditional paint companies. But they also have this sustainable element. And this is all of their muted, so they have different ranges, and this is mostly from the Serene range because, as I said, I wanted it to be really calming and serene. And so Serene Peach is what's on the ceiling, and I think it does just what it says on the packet, which is make it feel serene. This light, this is from the same lady as the bow candle holders, and it's that pop of red mixing with pastels that I just can't get enough of. You'll notice that when I really like something, I just use it again and again and again, and you can never get too much of a good thing. And I just fell in love with it and thought, yeah, that's the one. That's going to be such a nice statement in our living room. And it was a bit of a nightmare to get it up. I think, with old lights, it's always a little bit tricky. I really love the idea of having a wood burner because, I wanted this room to feel cozy, and it's used mostly in the evenings. And, the winters get pretty dark and dreary here, but this would have been where the flue behind here would have been where a flue could go. But actually, all of our waste pipes actually come down there, and you can't really have waste pipes going up and a fire coming down and a fire going up. That's not really going to work out. So I wanted to look into electric, but sometimes I don't know, they maybe look a bit naff. But what we did was we just bought this, I think it was on eBay again, this little fireplace. And then we popped in this little, it's a little grate essentially, and it allows you to burn, it's basically this, and it has cotton wool in it, and then you pour bioethanol fuel into it, and you can essentially put this in anything. You can put it in a fireplace grate, you can put it in a wood burner, and then you can have a little real fire just from burning bioethanol, and you don't need a flue or anything. This is just completely for decoration because I think it looks really cute. And then I got this tile. I mean, this tile is essentially my entire personality, and I always wanted to use it somewhere in the kitchen or in the bathroom. It just never quite worked out. And I had a few samples of it, and then I thought, finally, oh, I can use it under the wood burner. And I just ordered a few more samples, and I might build a little frame to go around it eventually, because as I said, we're still a work in progress in here. So before we go upstairs, I'll just show you into our little downstairs loo. So as I said, in the original house, you would come in and then there was the entrance down to that funny little corridor thing. And as I said, we're end of terrace, so it's a little bit different. Normally, your front door is at the front of the terrace and then you go through and it's all quite long, but I really love having the entrance on the side. I think it makes the space a little bit more usable, and I just like the flow of it. But I really wanted to have a loo downstairs because that's just really handy for kids and guests and everything. So we popped one in, and as you can see in a minute, I just wanted to get a really fun wallpaper and wallpaper all over the walls and the ceiling, and just make it a really fun little space. So we're going to go up the stairs now, and you'll notice that maybe the stairs are not the most traditional stairs you've ever seen. I got really into the rainbows as the course of the renovation went on, and as you'll see, I have painted them in a rainbow, and I think stairs just lend themselves really well to that because there's just that natural going up, and it's a natural place to put a gradient of colour on, and it's obviously running through the core of the home on every floor, and we've kept the rest of the hallways quite simple. So we added all this panelling in, which I think is really beautiful, painted it in a really neutral colour. You know, the doors are all really neutral, the walls are just white, and then there's just this pop of crazy rainbow as you go up, and it was really a labour of love getting all of the old paint. I mean, there was a red carpet originally, there was gold, like spirally wallpaper, and I spent really hours and days like heat gunning and sanding before I actually got around to making my little stencil and doing my pattern and painting it all in the most joyous colours you'll ever see. So I love this print, which is from a really cute online store called Le Print. And yeah, on your way out, just don't forget to shut the front door. Okay, so I really love this picture, so I think we need to just pause a second. It's probably only me that loves this picture, but I'll just take a little bit of time to say something about it. So as I said, we work in public health, and I found this, it's a reproduction map of, so it's Soho back in the 1850s, and it's John Snow's cholera map. So there's this big outbreak of cholera in the 1850s in London, and a guy called John Snow, who's now known as the modern father of epidemiology, he made a little map, and all of these little marks indicate a case of cholera. And because he was trying to figure out, you know, what is the cause of this outbreak? What can we do to stop it? And what he noticed is that the concentration of cases is all around a water pump. And so, you know, so many people are dying of cholera. And so they isolated the pump. Like, I think there's some famous thing of him going and like snapping the handle off. And that was the source of it. And then that essentially stopped the outbreak. So yeah, epidemiology is obviously the study of disease and how and why it affects certain groups. So I just think that's a really nice thing. And It's like got a little meaning. So this is the main bedroom, and I would say that this is maybe my attempt at trying to decorate like a grown-up. So you'll notice it's not all full of the pastels. I had this idea that we already had these wooden cupboards, sort of made of ply, and I had this vision idea that I wanted the walls to be this darkish green colour, and it was kind of inspired by nature, or to be a bit like a forest, and it would just be dark green and wood. So the floors are wood and the cupboards are wood, and then there's this like lovely deep green colour all over. And once it was all done, it was all painted in a green, and I ended up like going around afterwards like adding blue on the skirting boards and like painting the coving pink, because I just can't help myself. So adding those little touches in. But it's quite calming, and again, it's a room that's mostly used in the evening, so it's a darker colour, and I think it's a little bit different from my natural style, but I do like it. Originally this is our bed that we bought from our old flat, and it was a really sad millennial grey fabric, and every time I looked at it, my heart just sank a little bit. It didn't go with the green. It looked terrible, but it was perfectly good, really comfy bed, and there was not really any reason to get a new one. And so what I ended up doing, I just had this vision one day. Some days I'm just walking around and just get this idea, and I thought, oh, maybe I could, cover it. It's just fabric, so maybe I could take the bed apart and just cover it with a fabric. And I just saw like blue and white stripes in my head, and I was searching online for blue and white stripy fabric, but I couldn't really find anything, or it was like super pricey. And I ended up finding these curtains in this fabric, and what I did was I just bought 2 pairs, and I put one as the curtains, and then I used the other pair to upholster this bed. And when I say upholster, that sounds like I've got loads of skills and it's really fancy. What it essentially means is I got a staple gun and took the bed to pieces and then just stapled on the fabric, and it was really easy. And I think the effect's really cool, and now we don't have a sad millennial grey bed anymore. Then there's like a couple of vintagey pieces, so my little dresser that I got from a vintage shop, and also these little cane rattani bedside tables that I found on Facebook Marketplace, that's one of my favourite hobbies, is to waste hours of my life scrolling on Facebook Marketplace to look for those odd bargains that you can find. And I like the idea of having a chest of drawers as a bedside table. So that's what I've got on my side, because then again, you can just put all of the stuff out of sight, and just helps to keep things a little bit more tidy. And then we've got these really sweet little pinky lights that move, so that's quite handy. And then these gorgeous little pictures that I bought from a sweet store called the Bow Store, and she curates and collects art from all over the world. And I think these are sort of mid-century Swedish paints, and I just love the colours. I thought they're so pretty, and it's called Posy 1 and Posy 2. And when they arrived, there's some really sweet, on the back, there's a really sweet little notes, and it looked like it was grandparents to their granddaughter giving them the prints, and it's got some sweet writing on the back. And the colours of each of them are a little bit different, but it's nice to have, again, these little vintage pieces. We've got another little pocket door here. That's a bit of a favourite design feature. So we managed to, originally the house had one really big bathroom, which, although is lovely and feels very luxurious, felt like in London, when space is a bit of a premium, having a massive bathroom is maybe not the best use of space. So we ended up turning the one bathroom that was here originally into a spare room with an ensuite, and this ensuite, and a storage cupboard at the end. So that's almost like 3 or 4 rooms we've fitted in there. And that's just really handy, and it's allowed our daughters to have their own bathroom. That was one of my top renovation lists house from the beginning. I was like, those girls, you know, I've got 2 teenage girls in my future, and I wanted not to share a bathroom with them. I don't know if my background in science has how that's affected the design, but I think that my husband is also a professor, and I think that we both have quite analytical minds, and I think that that's really useful when you're thinking about space and how to get the best layouts. Obviously the colour and the finishing touches, that all came after, but I think the core of getting the house into the way that we wanted to live, maximising the space, putting in storage, which was the thing I was most excited about. Where, you know, given the chance to renovate, the thing I was most excited about was not having shoes and coats galore to be tripped over as soon as you walk in the door, which has been the situation in every other place that we've lived. You know, there was the opportunity to design spaces to add in a hallway cupboard for that purpose, and we've got these cupboards in the kitchen that stores all of the kids' arts and crafts and many, many board games that we have, and I think it's been useful in that way. Now I'll take you over to the spare room, which used to be the bathroom. So here we are. You might need to put your sunglasses on. This is the pink ceiling that I was talking about that gives off the glow. You genuinely do need sunglasses, especially with the pink throw. And this is a spare room. So we added the ensuite in at the 11th hour. We suddenly thought, oh, there's a girls' bathroom upstairs and then our ensuite that guests can't really access, and that's not ideal if they have to keep going upstairs to share with the girls. Should we just put an ensuite in? So we said to the builders, do you think you could just put a really small ensuite, as small as is physically possible? And they did, because there's a weird little window that the bathroom obviously had this nice big sash window and this weird little window, but that lended itself really well to adding a little shower room in. And it's really nice that it can all be separate. So it's for guests when they come, and sometimes I actually Airbnb out this room because I just find it quite a fun thing, meeting people. And then you can see they've got like little tea and coffee and stuff, and it's called the Rainbow Room. And it's, again, this was my first room that I did with the Yes colours, and that's when I totally fell in love with them. And this is one of the rooms where I didn't paint 5,000 paint samples on the wall. I ordered the colours, I got the swatches, and I just picked, and I said, right, the woodwork's going to be blue, the window's going to be yellow, the ceiling's going to be pink, and I also got a bit of this electric mint green, which I've put in the cupboard. And then I just did it, and it was great. And everyone who stays here, they just say that it makes them feel so happy, and that's the aim. So it's like, it's small and cozy, and I feel like it wasn't that much before, but with all of the colours, I think it's made it a really cool space. So as I said, we added the bathroom at the absolute last minute, and the budget was like basically zero for it. And so we just put in the most basic things, like the most basic shower tray, the most basic shower door, the plainest white tiles, and then I started off with this idea of doing a monochrome thing. I was like, oh, that could be cool. So we started off, and they painted all the walls black, or like railings. In fact, it's like a really dark grey-ish black, and the tiles were all white. And then it went in, and I thought, I absolutely hate it. This was me trying. That was like an example, I guess, of like me trying a thing that just like wasn't me. I just thought, oh, I actually just can't live with this monochrome. I can't, even though it's for guests, I just cannot live with it. So I was thinking, what can I do? So we painted the whole thing white. And I thought, what can I do? You know, everything's been installed. We're on a budget. Like, how can I spruce up this space? How can I make this room, you know, match the main bedroom and also be a bit more like jazzy? And I ended up undertaking the most ridiculous project that I can't believe that I did and finished, but it worked out. It's really cool. I actually spray painted the shower fittings and the shower tiles. I've seen this really crazy image on Pinterest, and it was kind of based on that. It's different colours, different design, but that's what gave me the inspiration. And so I spent about a week or 2 weeks. Nobody was living here, so I had all the windows open, like my mega spray mask, and I used waterproof spray paint, and I sealed it all and spent hours and hours doing this meticulous masking tape. And I don't think people just think they're tiles. They always ask, oh, where did you get the colourful tiles from? But that was probably my most ambitious little DIY project. And then I obviously can't tile, so I ended up painting the same pattern on the wall just so that it went all the way around and like add a bit more interest. So my favourite space in the house, and you probably don't hear this very often, is actually a hallway. So I already mentioned about the storage being really important when we got to redesign the configuration of the house. But the other thing I was really excited about and really committed to was having the laundry upstairs. So I'm not sure what's common in America, but in the UK, we always tend to have our washer and dryer downstairs. And that just doesn't make sense to me because that is not where the clothes are. And it is especially not where all my kids' clothes are that seem to be needing to be washed way too regularly. So my dream, which shows I'm getting old, was to have the washer dryer laundry area outside my kids' bedrooms, and that is right at the top of the house. And I've made it really colourful and joyous to make the sort of boring chore of doing laundry a little bit more bearable. And when we go up and see it, you can see for yourselves what I'm talking about. Okay, now I'd love to show you up to my daughter's floor. Okay, so this is undoubtedly my favourite part of the house. It's a hallway. I like to call this part of the house the Pastel Palace because this was the first area that I chose all of the colours and all of the decoration. And as I said, we did it from the top down. The light up here is unbelievable. So the ceiling used to end where this ceiling is. It used to go all of the way across. It used to be the entrance to the bedroom used to be here, and all of this bathroom and all of my daughter's bedroom and all of these cupboards used to be one huge room. So it mirrored the space of the master bedroom below. But as I said, we were super keen to give our daughters their own bathroom so that we didn't have to share with them. And this was a natural place to put a bathroom in, and there was no window there. So we ended up taking the ceiling out and adding a skylight. But then we thought, well, why don't we just take all the ceilings out? Because we had actually applied for loft conversion just to, while we were at it, maximize the space. And there's an interesting conservation feature called a butterfly roof. So if you see the roof slopes up that way, and then on the other side of the house, it slopes that. So I guess like butterfly wings. And that's a conservation feature that in the local conservation plan, they've really explicitly stated that they want to preserve those. So although there are many lofts in the area, those were done historically, and they want to conserve the feature. And to be fair, they do look really nice on the street, so I do understand that. But we thought, well, if we can't use the space, let's just take the ceilings out, and it gives this mega height. We added in all of these Velux windows, and it's super magical up here, I think. So I thought it would be a fun idea. I let my kids choose the colours for their bedrooms. It was chosen from one's a blue and one's a pink, and they then chose the exact hues from what I'd like to call a curated selection. And then I thought it would be sweet to paint the door in the same colour as the main. I've painted all of the woodwork in their bedrooms the same colour, and then it's like marking out, oh, this is so-and-so's room, this is so-and-so's room. And then the bathroom as well, you can see the door, the green goes in the same as the green panelling. And then I had these cupboards which are housing the laundry. And I thought, oh, we've used pink, we've used blue, we've used green, those are all my favourite colours, where do I go now? And at first I thought, oh, maybe yellow. And I painted a little swatch of yellow on the door. And then I thought, oh, that is a lot of yellow. I just think it would be a bit overwhelming, and I think it would be too much. And then one day I just thought, I'm gonna paint a rainbow. And this was actually the first like rainbow item in the house. So the other ones, this was the original inspiration. So everything else rainbow elsewhere has followed from this. So I thought I would just go for it, try it out, be brave. And if I don't like it, you know, what is the worst that can happen? It's just paint. And so I could just repaint it. So went for it, and it's my favourite part of the house, and I absolutely love it, and I genuinely don't mind doing laundry. So this picture up here is something I actually added just a couple of weeks ago. As soon as this space had been painted and the window had been painted, everything was done, there was this massive blank canvas above the window that I felt was just calling out for something. So, you know, this is sort of a year and a half or since this top bit has been finished, maybe longer even. And I always just saw in my head a massive carousel, but I never could figure out how to make that a reality, because how are you going to get a piece of art that is A, affordable, and B, the right size, and C, a carousel? And then I saw online, you know, I follow loads of fun and interiors accounts, and I saw somebody using peel and stick wallpaper and framing it. And that was the light bulb moment. I thought, I'm so doing that. So I Googled carousel wallpaper, and I found this really cool peel and stick, and I put it up, and I spent a good day measuring up there, hanging off a really tall ladder, and I managed to install it myself, and I even managed to build a little frame around it, and that was my first time sort of sawing wood, and it made me feel like I was really, you know, really manly. This is my kids' bathroom. As I said, I was really keen for them to have their own space. When I was a teenager growing up, my best friend, I remember so clearly, her family did some work in their loft, and I think they had previously shared a bedroom, and they managed to squeeze in 2 small bedrooms and a little shower room, and it was 2 sisters sharing, and I remember just thinking this was the best thing, and they've got their own bathroom, and it was such a cool place to go over to her house and get ready. And in our house we all shared one bathroom, and I had a brother, and that just, you know, that whole thing didn't seem as cool. So I thought, oh, that would be so nice to give my girls, you know, I thought that was such a great thing when I was younger. So I thought, oh, it'd be really nice for them to have that kind of space growing up, and friends coming to get ready. And so we've managed to squeeze, it's quite a small space, but I was determined that we would squeeze in a shower and a bath so that they had both. And my spray painting escapades actually began here. So the shower, I ordered sort of brass shower fittings, and you know, sometimes the building gets held up, and it was in a box for ages. I didn't bother opening it when it arrived, and the day came, they said, okay, we're going to install the shower now, like, where is it? And I opened the box, and I thought, oh, I don't really like the finish of that brass. You know, brass and gold, I think, is quite tricky, because you see something online, but it was quite this blacky brass, and it had I was not vibing with it. But I think it had been installed. It was actually, I saw it installed, and I just thought, oh my goodness, I really, really hate the shower. It's really ugly. I don't like it. So obviously, in the grand scheme of things, this is a really irrelevant problem to have. But I ended up thinking, what can I do with it? It's already in, it's already installed. We can't replace it now. That's going to be so much work. And I decided to spray paint the fittings. So that was my first foray into spray painting, and I'm totally obsessed. I think there's stuff, the chairs in the kitchen, those were, I spray painted those. There's stuff I've probably missed out all around the house. There's a mirror in my bedroom that I'm working on, so many things. But this was where it all started. And they've also got a sort of greeny, funky, colourful grout in their shower, which makes just plain white tiles really simple, but really effective spot. So I'm a bit jealous of their shower, to be honest. Mint is my favourite colour, and it always has been, ever since I was a child. If you ask my friends from when I was younger, blue and white stripes, another thing, they're always, you do not need another t-shirt with blue and white stripes. And I was always drawn to that colour. I think it just goes well with my colouring, so maybe I would choose it in my clothes, and it sparks joy. And when we were renovating, I just knew that I wanted to use loads of it. And the kitchen especially, it's all through the house, you'll find it everywhere. And finding the perfect mint is something that I have turned into somewhat of a scientific exploration. I actually ended up clearing out a lot of my samples because I think I had an entire cupboard worth of minty samples at one point and it was getting a little bit unhealthy. Okay, so shall we have a little peek in one of my daughter's bedrooms? So this is the front bedroom, one of my daughter's bedrooms, and as I said before, it used to be this one almost cavernous room that almost felt too big. So it's a really nice size now. And as I said, we decided in the whole hallway and bathroom to take the ceilings out. But when they were renovating up here, they actually took out the ceilings on the whole floor. So this entire floor, it was just a shell and there was just bricks everywhere and ceiling joists and exposed ceilings. And the first time I walked into this bedroom and the ceilings were out, I thought, wow, that looks unbelievable. And surely there's something that we can do to use this space because it just feels sort of criminal to just plop the ceiling back again. So what we've ended up doing is adding a little, like we call it a little mezzanine nook, and popping a little ladder in. And so the kids' bedrooms are actually a mirror image of each other. So they have the identical size bedroom. I mean, I'm sure that they've measured it down to the exact centimetre, and you know, if anybody had 1 centimetre more than the other, huge arguments would ensue. But so they've both got a little mezzanine, and I just think it's so fun. I would have absolutely loved that when I was a kid. You know, I said I'm a big kid. I love sort of playful design and interiors, and all of their friends think it's super fun. And they go up there, and I'm sure that they just take sweets up there and hide and take tablets when I've said that they're not allowed to watch and do all sorts of things. And who knows what's going to be going on when they're older. But it's a really cute little feature that they both love. When I'm decorating, one of my favourite styles is I really like white walls, off-white walls, and then bringing colour in the woodwork. So I think actually the master bedroom is the only room with actual colour on the walls. So I decided at the beginning that all of the woodwork could be painted, and as I said, I gave my daughters the choice of the colour, and then we just painted all of the woodwork. And the windows originally started off, and I wasn't feeling super brave, and we just painted the architrave in the blue, and the window remained white, but then it just wasn't cutting it, and we had to go back. I said, no, we have to go for it, we have to do this properly. And so then the whole window's been painted in the blue, and it's really cute. And she's got this little hanging chair that we bought from our old apartment. This one's a total bookworm, and it's just nice to have a little spot to read in. I think that home it's a place to just be yourself and to relax and to be around things that you love. And I think that is the home that we've created. It's a really fun and welcoming and special place that we just really love living in.
Today on Homeworthy, we're visiting the Edwardian London townhouse of James Arcoulis and Stuart Spice. As an interior designer, James infused their home with bright colors and collected objects that speak to each other in a sophisticated yet whimsical way. Meanwhile, Stuart, a garden designer, ensured their dreamy outdoor space filled with terracotta planters and flourishing greenery was the idyllic spot for entertaining. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. To shop items inspired by this and other Homeworthy episodes, be sure to check out the product links below for amazing furniture, accessories, and more.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm James.
I'm Stuart.
And welcome to our house in London. Come in. So we're here in the entrance hall, and I'm going to give you guys the tour inside because Stuart's a garden designer and I'm an interior designer. So we agreed that we would kind of split what we do here, although you'll see that throughout there's influences from both of us. So when we first saw the house, which was about 3 years ago, one of the things that I really loved was that this space still had a lot of the original features, like the original Edwardian tiles. And this was really a good starting point for us with colour, because we knew that bringing colour into the house was something that was going to be really important. And actually, when we first came here, everything was painted white. So it really has been a blank canvas with something to start from. But I did feel that in this entrance hall with these tiles, and you'll see behind you, we've got a beautiful like stained glass window in the door. So it was almost like the house was saying, I do want a bit of colour. So we kind of took that as a starting point. And here we've kind of started quite neutrally, I think. We didn't want to overdo it when you walk in, because as you'll see, like the rooms that lead off this have like strong tones. So this is a colour called Henderson Buff by Benjamin Moore Paints. And we went for this because you get a lot of light from the front and the back of the house here. So actually the light changes throughout the day. And it was really important to find a tone that worked in the morning, in the evening, but that also worked with the tiles. And then we had quite a lot of conversations about whether we were going to keep this wallpaper or not, which I am convinced is original, but lots of people just don't like it and said, you have to take it out, you've got to strip it off. But in the end, we decided to just paint it in a nice neutral tone. And I think it's nice that we have something here that for me definitely nods back to the original way the house might have been. On top of that then, we've tried to add colour. I've got an artwork here by one of my favourite Greek artists called Elekos Vassianos. And I really, really love like the bold red and almost electric blue and the simplicity of the lines. And we have some other pieces from him throughout. So actually on the table here, we've got an original print of his, which I bought Stuart for his birthday because it's a guy frolicking in the garden. So it reminded me of him. And it's like centre place on this lovely table, which was one of the nice things about having a bit of room here in the opening, because it's nice to have somewhere to put your keys and your shoes. And we always kind of collect things on here. So there's normally flowers to bring a bit of colour, and have my favourite jar of Santa Maria Novella potpourri, which I definitely feel potpourri is not just for the 80s. This stuff is amazing. So we bought it in Florence and it just smells absolutely gorgeous. And apart from that, one of the other essentials that we put in here, I think if you live in London, is we have some door curtains, because certainly in the winter, coming home when it's freezing cold and totally miserable, there's nothing nicer than pulling those closed and just putting the world behind you and coming into a house that's nice and warm and cozy. So if you come down here, I can show you a little bit what else we did with the hall. We've obviously put in a new stair runner, which brings a little bit of the blue through that you'll see in the other rooms, and is kind of picked up in the colours of the print and in this vintage lamp that we found in France as well. And I think throughout the house, we've tried to link the colours wherever you go. And originally down here, this has changed, so we put this door in so you could see through to the kitchen, which is something an Edwardian never would have wanted you to be able to do when you walked into the house. And the reason that we did that is so that we could put in a little loo under the stairs, which is so useful in London. And here we went for a really, really bold colour to try and make it fun. And when people come around for dinner and things, they're obviously not expecting this to be here, and they love it when they go in. It's got a really kind of almost like, I don't know, like a nightclubby kind of vibe. It's like very dark and moody, and it's got a great sink that we've bought in Marrakesh. So I love that. It's been a great addition to the house, although not original. And then from here, we can go through into the sitting room and I'll show you the rest of the house. So welcome to the sitting room. This is one of the rooms that we really loved when we first saw the house. It's got amazing proportions and the original fireplaces. Although, like I said, everything was painted white, it still had the beautiful original ceiling details here. So it had a lot of character, and we could feel straight away that this room had great potential to be a wonderful place to entertain with friends and family. It's amazing at Christmas, and we have a really big Christmas tree here and the fire going. And this was a room where I knew that we probably wanted to go quite bold with the color because it's a big space. So it really felt that it could take something quite strong. And I had in my mind, I really wanted to do an olive green, but finding the right green was something that took a really long time. And we tried about 30 different greens in here. And the issue being that a lot of them looked great to start with, but during the day, especially in the UK being a bit miserable sometimes, they would start going grey and look a bit sad. So eventually we found this amazing colour made by this guy down in Sussex, and it's weirdly called You Call That a Pub is the name of the colour. I mean, I love that all throughout the day it kind of changes colour. It's got a really warm undertone to it. It's really rich. But unfortunately, it did take about 7 coats of paint to get it to this level. And my husband, Stuart, painted this room. So he's just about forgiven me for that. And I think it looks good. So we've agreed it was worth it in the end. So coming in, I mean, a few of the things that I love here, like basically we collect things all the time. So this is a lamp that was from my aunt who lived in Milan, and it's an original Murano glass piece, which I love. And we've tried to mix the more traditional elements of this room with more contemporary artwork that we've collected. This is a Swedish mid-century painting. And I found this on eBay, and I thought it was so funny because it really reminds me of the sculptures that the mum makes in Beetlejuice. And I think that's such a great film. And so I was like, well, this is coming home for sure. In this room, I've really tried with the schemes, you'll see, to tie in botanical elements that link to what my husband does. So yes, we always have fresh flowers here, but in things like the trims on the curtains, these have got like a small flower detail. And again, the cushions here have got a scrolling fern. So I've tried to include that in a subtle way. But also I love these cushions because they're like our winter spring cushions. So in the summer, have this side round, and in the winter, you've got a cozy velvet on the back. And also this fabric was much more expensive than the back one, so it also was economical too. This coffee table we had made for our house by this amazing craftsman down in Sussex. So it's made of charred oak, and he's like hand chipped all the edge here as well. So this is one of my favorite pieces that we had made. And I really like that it's quite contemporary, given that the space naturally, I think, feels a little bit traditional. And something else that we had made especially for here was this sofa, because I thought it'd be really lovely to have a window seat so you could sit in that space. And it's great when you've got people here that there's different areas for people to sit and talk. But as we couldn't build a window seat in because there's a radiator there, we decided to have this sofa made, and it's a really, really cozy corner to sit in. This is kind of fun because obviously there's always that point when you're designing a room and you want everything to look great, and then you have to put the television somewhere. So I was really conscious that I didn't want sort of a black box on the wall all the time, especially when we have people over for things. So actually, this is a vintage drinks cabinet that we found online, and the television is put away in here for most of the time. So the room can look lovely, but when we want to sit down and watch a movie, it's in there. Apart from that, like, it's again just adding things together. So we've got this artwork collection on the wall here, and some of the pieces we've drawn, some are collected, some have been given to us, and this is kind of changing all the time. Like, I don't like the house to be too kind of fixed. It's not about everything having to be in the same place always. I think it's nice to keep the energy flow by being able to move things around whenever you want, and especially, you know, in the spring and summer having flowers, and then in the winter having different things and candles and stuff. And I think it really helps keep the house feeling alive. We do love collecting things, and sometimes collecting things means finding things on the street near your house. So actually, this is a chair that when we lived at our old house in Fulham, we were walking to the shops one day and there it was. And we kind of looked at each other and were like, I mean, it's clearly here for someone to take. So It came home with us. I promise it was definitely there for someone to take. We didn't steal someone's chair. But so we've had this for ages, and it's been a desk chair. It's been so many things, but we kind of use it here because, again, I like that it's a real mix with its contemporary, like the metal frame. It feels like almost a little bit Bauhausy. And then we had this ottoman made in Morocco to go with it. So I think it kind of ties the two together and makes it like a nice place to sit. So when my stepfather comes over, he always loves sitting in this chair. This is his chair. So it's appreciated, and I think it really works well in the space. It's like a slightly different style to the other more traditional elements that we have too. So we can go now and have a look in the dining room, which flows straight off here, which is really nice. If you're coming over maybe for a party, we'd probably head straight to here, and I could get you a drink, alcoholic or non-alcoholic, no judgment. And this is always a great kind of mingling area when we have people round. And the nice thing about the two rooms is that they really do link together. So when you've got people over, whether it's for a big dinner or like a party, this like space works so nicely together. And again here we had a traditional fireplace, which was nice. And obviously these rooms would have originally been separate from each other. And this had been opened before we came actually. But I think we would have opened it anyway because it's nice that it flows through. And although we do have dinner parties here, but this is also where Stuart does a lot of his design work and drawing. So it's nice he can sit here and do that and look out at the garden. And this is an Edwardian vintage pendant, which I found online. And I thought, although we haven't got a lot of very traditional lighting in the house, I thought that this was a nice way to kind of nod to the period of the home a little bit. And it's kind of offset with more contemporary things. So this is a painting that was commissioned by my granddad in the 70s. And it's a bit out there, but I like it. I always, when I was a child, used to think it looked a bit like some kind of sea creature on the bottom of the ocean. But I think it actually works pretty well in this space. It's very 70s, as you can tell. But I think that's the nice thing throughout. We've just kind of tried to mix in different elements. So you have this, and then the print over the fireplace is by a Brazilian artist. So we got this quite recently, but I love it. And again, it's kind of got like a reference to plants and things. So it's always just about, I think, trying to find that balance, bringing colour in, bringing fun in, and mixing different periods and styles in a way that feels like it's natural to this house here. In the room, we tend not to put this fireplace on so much because it's the smaller one. And obviously when this was originally an Edwardian house, you can tell it's much smaller. So this was considered like a less grand room than the front room where we have the bigger fireplace. And in the winter, we do have the front fireplace on a lot, which is really nice. But here, one thing that we did do is we changed the tiles on the reveal here. So these are from a wonderful company in London called Barloneum. And I've always loved these, amazing. They're almost like a funky tortoiseshell. So I didn't really know where we were going to use them, but when we had the fireplace slips here, I was like, this is the absolute perfect place to put those. And I just love that. Again, it's obviously a really traditional period piece, but if you just do something simple like changing the tiles in there, it's made it really work with the rest of the room, and it makes it fun and contemporary. So I have to say actually, having fireplaces was one of the things that really drew us to the house as well, because it's such a nice thing to be able to do, especially around Christmas and the holidays and things. So it really brings the room alive, yeah. This end of the room, as well as obviously being a dining room, come somewhere that we work, is also like a library, and we have a lot of books. So actually we do need more bookshelves now, but we've got a lot of our collections here. There's a big section on gardening books, which Stuart uses a lot, and we've got some records. I get a lot of records from my dad, who probably has the biggest record collection than anyone should ever have. So I'm always like, just give them to me, you know. And so I have a lot of like vintage records from my dad here, and we've got a little record player. And I do also like collecting really odd ones, like the glories of Tudor church music, which, you know, turns out to be really interesting. So it's, again, like we just like always seeing little things like these vintage cameras that we bought at a flea market in Berlin. And the fun thing is things like that. So we found this camera, and then realised there was actually like a film in it that had been used. So I took it down to get it developed, and there were all these photos of, obviously, I don't know who they are, but it's kind of amazing that there's this connection with these people who lived probably like 50 years ago in Berlin, and just little like interesting things like that. So the house is full of all these little things that we've collected, and I think I like to refer to them as life souvenirs, because I think that makes it sound better than just saying we have loads of stuff. Although this room has really beautiful proportions, which we didn't want to mess with, one of the things that we did want to change is how connected this room feels to the garden, because all of the house for us is really about how it relates to the outside space. So here originally there were 2 small windows and a single door, and it really didn't feel like you could kind of have this open connection, which was so important. So we had these doors made and the opening made bigger, and on a day like today when it's open, it really does feel like you just go straight outside into the garden, and they really are kind of as one together. So on that note, we can go and find Stuart, and he can tell you a bit about what he's been doing in the garden.
So this garden is actually on a north-facing aspect, and everyone told us, like, do you really want to take on a north-facing garden? But I saw that as a bit of a challenge. So this is like kind of the way in from like the dining area into the garden, and it's really I thought it was really good to have a good strong focal point running down the garden. It's kind of like got these 4 great big terracotta pots there, and then at the end you'll see there's a big Greek urn to kind of reflect what James's heritage and his Greek. So this is kind of like a bit of a shady area, really like a really nice cool area in the summertime. Obviously London gets really hot, so it's really nice to have that kind of like respite. Sometimes you'll sit here with like a nice table and chairs and just have a really nice sort of like chilled evening with a glass of wine. Some people, like, we chose gravel as like a finish, and people were like, why have you chosen gravel? It's a bit of a dodgy material to use at the back of a house. But I really like it as a material to be used. And people think like, oh, you might take it into the house, but you don't, because what we've done is we've put these 2 great big like giant slabs here, and that kind of like stops the gravel from going in. But I just love the sound of it, I love the feel of it, I love the texture, I love the colour, and it's really practical. With this being north facing, sometimes when you use like a stone or say like a wooden material, it can get quite slimy in like the winter time, and you have to like jet wash it off. But with gravel, it's no problem at all. You just can come out and you can walk on it and not feel like you're going to slip over. We had this tabletop made. It's actually a zinc by a company called Think Zinc. It's really, I really wanted a metal top because like a lot of things, and it's been made bespoke for us. So, and it needed to be made bespoke for this space because finding it really difficult to find a table that fitted this space properly. And then we just put some really fun, colourful chairs around. And then the parasol is just, I think, something we found online. So the garden is constantly changing. I do the opposite of what I advise people to do, which is like plant the right plant in the right place. And I'm always trying to push the boundaries on that, because I always want to see how far you can take something in a space where you think maybe it's a shady area, but can I put a plant that likes it more sunny? Will it work? Especially with like a changing environment that we currently live in, everything's getting hotter. So I like to play around. This is a bit of a playground, this garden. I like to play around with things and move things around, constantly changing it. It's constantly evolving. It never stays still. To be honest with you, this is kind of like my own individual project. I went to the plant nursery and just went, what plants do I really like? And I'm going to make it work. So, and I did have like a kind of a rough idea on sketch, on plan, but that's since changed as well. The garden has grown and evolved as time's gone by. I mean, it's only been here for 2 years, but it does change quite a lot. It's changed quite a lot in that. It's really interesting, yeah, because at night time, we've got a lot of lighting around the garden, and sometimes you might put up a disco ball out here. So the whole space becomes quite a magical space at night. And all the trees, all the plants, everything's kind of lit up. So it becomes a really good sort of evening with friends, kind of dining, drinking, cocktail hour. That's the idea. It's kind of like having this kind of like secret garden in London. That's you open the front door, you come through the back, and it's kind of, you're just by yourself, basically. Me and James actually installed this little water feature ourselves. And it's really, really because London is quite a noisy place to live in. And just to have that lovely bit of water sound, that sound in the garden, just really distracts you from everything else that's going on around you. So yeah, it's a really, really lovely feature to have in the garden. And if you can fit a water feature in your garden, just a little one somewhere, I would do it. This big stone sink here, there was a purchase from eBay and it weighs an absolute ton. Didn't realise it at the time, but trying to get it here, getting it installed. But it's a really, really good thing to have. Like, when we entertain, we'll fill this all up with ice and have like bottles of wine in and things like that. So it's a really good, it becomes like a drink station as well. So at night. This is kind of like a bit of a sundown space. So the sun hits down here and you can sit here and bathe in the sun in the evening. And yeah, have a little glass of wine or something. And you'll probably notice that a lot of the pots around here, they're all just one material, they're all just terracotta. And I think it's really important when you're designing a space to just not overdo it on the amount of materials you use. So all terracotta pots, I think just kind of grounds it and it gives it a bit more of a traditional kind of look out here as well. But yet with a contemporary tabletop, the contemporary colour in the chairs, I think that kind of like makes it a little bit more modern. This tabletop is constantly changing. So in the springtime, this will be full of spring bulbs, spring flowers. All these pots, a lot of these pots get rechanged to that. And then right now, this is quite like a hot and sunny look. All the aeoniums. And now I'll let you go and see James, who's going to talk to you about the kitchen.
Now we're in the kitchen, which obviously it comes straight through off the entrance hall, and we like now that the house feels a lot more connected. And again, in terms of the colours that we chose, the entrance is obviously in a soft greeny yellow, and coming into this space, it feels like a logical kind of progression of colours. Also, we picked this kind of deep ochre because this is a north-facing room, and especially until we put the new window in here, it was a bit grim. And I mean, the kitchen itself was exceptionally grim. So we have taken everything out. This was one of the rooms where we've done the most work. And I'm so pleased that the results now feel kind of warm and fun, and we've managed to make it feel a lot more like our home. And I think through the use of the colours and things like these slightly mid-century tiles, which really remind me of my grandparents' kitchen in Greece. They had a super mid-century kitchen. So we thought this was like a fun nod to that. But again, it's about balance everywhere. So the walls are really strong, and that's important in making the room feel warm and welcoming. But then because of that, we've gone for really simple cream cabinets. And although this isn't a huge space, when we first came to the house, we thought we were going to do a big extension and change all of these rooms completely. But when we really got to know the home, it really felt like it would be such a shame to do that. It has such a nice character of its own. So we really wanted to see how we could make this room work. And for two people, in terms of size, it does work really well. But we've kind of split it up into different areas. So here we have what we call the bistro, which is where after a day at work and maybe you come home and it's a bit cold and miserable outside and stuff, we like to sit here and have a glass of wine and have a catch up, and I'll say, shall I meet you in the bistro tonight? And like, it's nice to have somewhere that we can sit and talk and that's different than going and sitting and watching television. And we have a lovely plate rack here that we built, which I think is fun, and it's a nice way to kind of, you know, display something other than artwork, which we have all throughout the house, and we have nice plates here that we've collected and things. So this is one of my favorite bits of the kitchen, but probably my favorite bit of the kitchen is the new sink that we put in. So the old sink area was just not good. So we kind of wanted to make a real feature of this with the units, and having this window here has made such a difference to the space. And I thought, what do we do here? Do we put a blind? Or I don't know, sometimes in a kitchen you don't want that. So I wanted to find some way to try and make this an interesting space though, and somewhere that, you know, if you do have to stand and do the washing up, you're like, well, actually I like standing there, it's nice. So I remembered when we were in Barcelona, we had seen in Park Güell, which was designed by Gaudi, they had a lot of kind of painted details around the windows there. And so that's loosely where this idea came from. And now it's like one of my favorite parts of the house, and we always have flowers through the summer, and you know, you've got to do the washing up, so you might as well make it somewhere that is fun to do it. So we love having people over for dinner, and Stu actually is more of the cook than me, I would say. So the nice thing now is we've got plenty of work surface, there's lots of room to cook, and although having open plan's brilliant, we've found that having the dining room and the kitchen separate is actually really great when you have people over, because it means that you can make loads of mess in here if you're feeling super creative in the kitchen, and then no one really has to see it either. So that's definitely been a bonus for us, yeah. Here we bought this cabinet from a charity shop in London, and it basically houses all the little like jugs and salt and pepper shakers and bowls and all the things that we've collected from traveling around, and they're always so useful when we have people over for dinner and they all come out. But it's nice having them in here, and it's nice that you can see them as well, so we love that. And I think it's a really nice way to kind of display things and put them away. And then apart from that, here we've got our fridge, which I think it's kind of important that even if you are trying to always be really tasteful in your house, that maybe there's room to not be so tasteful somewhere. So our fridge is where we have all the slightly naff fridge magnets and things that we've collected. And whenever people go away, we always say, please, like, bring us back a really, really awful fridge magnet from somewhere. And they're all displayed here. So I just think you need that space. Like, it shouldn't be too perfect. You've got to have somewhere to have fun, and the fridge is our place for that. So. This room being somewhere that we were conscious we wanted it to feel really warm, we were undecided to start with about whether we were going to do a stone on the countertops or a nice timber. And I think in the end, having the wood here it's really lovely. It's so tactile, and it definitely helps to bring a bit of warmth to the space, which is really what we were looking for in here. And I think it works really nicely against the blue of the tiles. It brings a little bit of richness, which is really important to the kitchen as well. Okay, so now we'll go upstairs, so follow me. Okay, so we're here on the landing. Obviously all the rooms upstairs lead off from here, and again the colour from downstairs comes all the way up, which is why again it was important it kind of worked with all the colours coming off these rooms. And in this space we've got a few interesting things. So this is a vintage Marimekko sample piece that I was given by someone I used to work with, and it's just a really, really super long piece of fabric, but I've put it on 2 bits of canvas, and I think it's beautiful. It's almost like an abstract landscape painting. So that works really well in this space here, I think. And we've also got this unusual sculpture that I bought when I was about 11. I was down with my grandma in Hastings, and I asked to empty my post office savings account to buy it, and she was completely horrified. But to be fair, to this day, it is still here, so I feel it was a great purchase, and we love these Hindu gods who hopefully are keeping an eye on all of us in the house and keeping us good. So from here we could go through into the bedroom, and I'll show you that. Okay, so this is our bedroom, and it's the most neutral room in the house. So although I said Stuart and I split the design and you know, we kind of let each other have our own creative spaces, he was quite specific. He said, I love all the colour, that's really great, but can we please have something more neutral in the bedroom? And so, like any good interior designer, I listened to what my client said, and hence we have this colour. But I still think it's really interesting. It's nice, it changes tone throughout the day. And I've tried to then bring the colour with other things. So this is a painting that I did of the island that my Greek family's from. And again, we've got like little pops, like Stuart bought this for me in Japan. So it's a Japanese fish flag. And I love that because I love fish, and I used to have lots of fish when I was younger. And I'd always really wanted a 4-poster bed, but we went and found something that was like a little bit more contemporary as well, you know, without all the curtains and all of that stuff. And this felt like it really worked nicely in the space and brings a bit of character. And we found these are vintage, kind of slightly Art Deco bedside tables, which again, I think it's nice to mix the kind of richer woods against the dark, more of like a lacquer of this. And then again, it's just about kind of layering things together. I always like have a stack of books by the bed. Like it's always good to have things to read. Sometimes they're, you know, educational highbrow, sometimes not so much, but you know, always something on the go there. And then the rest of the rooms really have got lots of family photos and like mementos of different things. So just here we've got a collection of some prints, and these are some of them we've done. So I did this painting and this piece here and this drawing, but then this is a print by Yayoi Kusuma, who I love her work, and I probably just said her name wrong as well, so I'm really sorry for that. And they're just like little bits that we've collected together. So this was Stuart's grandparents, and this is a vintage chest that's always useful to have as well. And I just think it's nice to have things in the bedroom. So we tried to keep it calming, so there's not too much stuff going on in here, but it's a level that I think works really well for us and still gives the room a bit of character. So one of the things that we did love about the house was that it did still have some of the original features. So this is one of the original Edwardian wardrobes, which looks beautiful. I would say is limited in terms of its practical use for clothes, because actually Edwardians used to hang their clothes back to front rather than sideways like we do now. So it's not actually deep enough to hang clothes in this way, which is why we have the separate dressing room, but it is very useful for keeping all sorts of other stuff in. And again, the room had the original fireplaces, which we don't use, but I thought these were so pretty, and I loved the colour of these tiles particularly and the design on them. This is probably like my favourite colour, this teal, and so it's nice that they were here as a starting point to kind of pull colours on for when we were doing different things in the house too. So again, with the curtains here, like I wanted to find something that felt a little bit bedroomy, so we went for a ticking stripe, and then this trim we found actually in an antiques market in Hay-on-Wye in Wales, and I bought it for the company thinking we would use it on a project somewhere, but then I realised actually I liked it too much, so it's here in our bedroom instead. And I think it's a really nice way to just bring a little bit of interest on what otherwise would be really simple curtains, but I love them. Okay, that's the bedroom, so come with me and I'll show you the bathroom. This is probably the other room where we did the most, apart from the kitchen, because again, this room hadn't really, I think, been decorated since at least the 90s and was a bit miserable. And in terms of the layout, really didn't work. So you had a toilet right here when you walked in, and then you had a long bath with the shower over it, which kind of isn't ideal. So we were really looking for a way to try and give this room a little bit more character in its limited space, but also so that we could have a separate bath and a shower, which I really wanted because I love a bath, and I really wanted to have a bath where I wasn't sitting underneath the shower all the time. So we managed to figure the layout out. I think it works really well. We kept actually the motif of the black and white tiles, which felt quite Edwardian and classic, but then we've used a sort of a lighter sagey green on the walls here to give a little bit of contrast to that. And this stained glass window was actually what was downstairs, separating the kitchen from the hallway so that you couldn't see through all the way from the front door. And we knew we had to keep it and use it somewhere. So for now, it's here in the bathroom, and it's a nice little addition to the space. So you can see I did eventually get my dream bath, which is a roll top, and it is super comfy, I have to tell you. But I knew that wanted to do something a little bit different with it as well. So at work, we've done a lot of projects where we have baths and we've painted them like bright red and things. But I thought I've got to try and maybe do something a little bit more personal for us here. And I really couldn't think what to do. I knew maybe I wanted to paint on it, but then I have this guy that I bought at the British Museum when I was about 10. So it's obviously not an original from ancient Egypt, but from the gift shop. And I just always loved this turquoise color and the patterns on him. So this really became the starting point for sort of getting on the floor and painting the bath. And I have to say I kind of love it. I think it's nice to have something a little bit different, and it's the kind of thing that really anyone can do. So I think that was fun. And then the other thing that we've done in here is layered in quite a lot of pictures, and the idea from that was a bit obscure, that we went to Osborne House on the Isle of Wight and we saw Prince Albert's bathroom, which actually again was really small, but had all these amazing oil paintings going up to the ceiling. And obviously we don't have that grand proportion here, but I thought, yeah, why not just have paintings in the bathroom? And this is actually a painting that I had done, so I kind of can sit here and critique it while I'm in the bath and, you know what I should change next time. So it often does come off the wall and I will like, try and improve on it. But really a painting's never finished, is it? So this could be going on for a while. And then the other piece is, this belonged to my grandparents in Greece, and it's a micro mosaic, which is amazing that they've made this painting out of this, like the smallest stones. So I love that piece, and it's really personal to us. And then this is something quite fun that we found in Wales. So this is for the person, I think, who has everything and loves decor, because it like folds down, so it's like a traveling display shelf, so that you can just take, like when you're away, you feel like you must have something to display things on. I mean, I just thought, who designed this? But I kind of love them for it. So this is now here. It doesn't necessarily come traveling with us, but I thought it was just too cute. So that's, I think, the highlights of the bathroom. This is our dressing room, which, as I said before, the wardrobes, although they're really cute in the bedrooms, genuinely don't fit a lot of clothes. So this would have been the third bedroom, and actually when we came here, the person who had the house before, I think definitely their grandchildren used to stay in here, and there were loads of stickers of like spaceships and stuff like that all over the wall. I'm pretty sure we've got most of them off now, but every now and then, like, I do find one somewhere still. And in this room, I wanted to go for quite a deep color, and this has taken a long time again, and I am going to be really honest with you guys. I'm not sure I got the color right in here. This is supposed to be Venetian red, but I feel it's definitely more Venetian orange. And I think this room is definitely probably going to get painted again. But that's, I think that's the nice thing about when you're on home, isn't it? You can try things, it's different, and until you're happy with it, just keep going. So it's always a bit of a work in progress, but I do love that this room has given us somewhere to keep all our clothes. It's a nice place to come and get ready, put everything away, and I guess it feels like a little bit of a luxury in London and not a really, really big house. So we love it. Okay, so this is our guest room, and when we were moving to the house, we knew it was really important that we would have a big guest room so friends and family can stay. And we love that this room is almost as big as our room, so we can make somewhere that's really kind of cozy for people. And when I was thinking of a starting point for that, and like what could we do, what color would be kind of the most cozy color I could think of for here, I was thinking back to my grandparents' house in the 90s. And I feel like there was a lot of this kind of like peachy pink in the 90s. And so I was like, I'm going to go and try and find this color. I feel like this would be a good starting point for this room. But we could not find the color for here anywhere. And we tried loads of different things out. And eventually I saw this that we had, which is like this aftershave box. And I was like, that's the color. I was like, that is exactly the color that we need. So I took this down to the paint shop at the end of the road, and the very patient lady there, who I'd obviously been in a lot of times already, was kind of like, oh, you're back. And I was like, yeah, I've got like, can you do this? Can you match this color to me? And she did. She found a Benjamin Moore color. I think this is called Roman Shade, but we like to call it Butch Pink. And this is the cozy color of our guest room. And I've tried to kind of offset that with navy blue and the greens of the artwork. Again, these slightly somber ladies I found on eBay, and I thought they were just interesting. I'm not really sure what they're all thinking, but it was I like the green against the pick. It's kind of a classic combination. And in here we've also got, this is a piece again that I got from my family in Italy, so it's traveled quite a long way to be here, but it's very useful in the guest room. And again, around the bed, I've just tried to make it really cozy. We've got these really nice cantha quilts, which are hand block printed, and they again they're not matching. I think that's what's important. Like, I didn't want all the colours to be matching necessarily, but these kind of different greens and blues and yellows I think work really, really well against the pink. And this is a room again where we have the original wardrobes, but I put a little rail up here so when people come round we can put some hangers out and people can hang their clothes up here, which I think is always really useful when you've got guests. And then the book overflow also lives in this room, as well as our collection of little knickknacks, all the little guys that we've collected through traveling around the world. And some of them have been gifts and some of them we've bought when we've been abroad, but they're all here to kind of bring good luck and, you know, positive energy to all the people sleeping in this room. And I think that's really the whole point of this space, is to have somewhere, a home away from home, that people come and feel really, really welcome and kind of settled and happy. And that, with the original fireplace, was something again that was a nice starting point in this room. And actually it did already have like a little bit of almost pink in here, and green and yellow. So it's funny, in a way the room maybe was telling me what the scheme should be before we even started, actually. So as well as having the double bed in here, one of the great things about this room was that we had this big bay window here, and I love that you've got the olive trees outside, so it almost feels like a little bit like you're staying in a tree house. And at least that's certainly what I tell my nephews when they're the ones that have to stay on the single bed in the window. But it's been a great way to get a bit of extra space in here, so you can have 3 people sleep in this room. And this was actually a day bed that we had from IKEA at our old house, but it literally just fit in absolutely perfectly. So it's really, really used that space well, and it just means that this is a really comfy room for, you know, my sister and her nephews to come and stay in when they come here to stay with us. Obviously we love plants, and we have a lot, and they have congregated here in this corner where I feel they're really happy together. They're creating their own little jungle ecosystem in the corner, and, you know, I'm sure providing lots of great oxygen for the people staying in this room. And again, like, kind of tying in with the plant theme, I found these curtains. They were actually from a supplier online, but I had them lined by our curtain maker so that they're really, really nice and thick now and have blackout in them as well. But I just thought this pattern with the leaves and the navy blue and the yellow just worked so well in this space that they were just perfect for here. And they add freshness with the cream as well against the pink walls, I think, which is important to have that balance in here, so it's not too cute, you know. So this is a print that was given to me for my birthday a few years ago, and Aldous Huxley is a relation on my mum's side of the family. I've always been really intrigued in his books and literature, and actually did a degree in English literature before I was an interior designer. So this is a piece that I love, not only for obviously the family connection, but I love how graphic it is. And again, I like the contrast that you've got this kind of really like soft, like powdery pink walls, and then this really, really strong, bold print on it. I think that kind of contrast is something that I really, really love in a space. So it works really well for me here. I think so many things make a house a home, and you said fun.
Definitely fun, yeah.
But I think for us it's also somewhere where you have all the things that you love together, whether that's friends and family or things you've collected and artwork and books, but wherever you bring those things together, that's home.
Today on Homeworthy, we're visiting the charming North London home of journalist Jess Aliviellis. Continuously renovating her home, she has infused the lovely space with colors that evoke meaningful memories with her family and vintage treasures collected from her extensive travels. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Jess Aliviellis. Welcome to my home in North London. Come on in. welcome to my hallway. This didn't have any original features left, and a big priority for us was to restore as many of the original features in the house as we could. So we went to the neighbours' houses and saw what cornicing they had. Oh, there's a cobweb there. Saw what cornicing they had and tried to match that exactly. And then we got hold of these really fun tiles, and we decided to lay them in block colours. So we have the yellow, we have the kind of teal, and then the white. And then that kind of made me panic about paint, but then we decided let's just go for it. So we've blocked it out. So we have this kind of sunshine entryway, which would be a bit overpowering if it was the whole thing, but because it's just hi, this is my front door. We have this sunshine bit, this blue bit, and then the rest is neutral, so you don't feel like you're gonna get a headache. I got this Murano light from auction. I am really into buying from auction sites, buying from vintage markets, antiques markets. I think it's the best way to get the best quality thing, the most bang for your buck. So yeah, so that came from Sweden, I think. It's obviously originally from Italy. And then yeah, the rest is neutral and full of crazy artwork. Over here we have a collection of, this is mostly pieces that are just meaningful to us. Some tiles that we bought in Mexico. Actually, a really good tip for tile, if you want to put a tile on the wall but you don't want to use one of the plates, is actually just Velcro. So these are command Velcro strips. Anyway, it's my favourite tip for hanging tiles. This one is from Georgia. It's a tile, but this one we put in a little frame. They're from artists who are friends, from antiques markets. This is a stamp from Jordan, and that's where my heritage is from. So this were knitted by my daughter's great grandma. So yeah. So when we bought this house, it had a good feeling about it, and it had been loved once, but it had been a while since it had been loved. A lot of the features were gone. There was a lot of damp and mold, so we really had to kind of take it back to brick and start again. So this room is actually the last room, pretty much, that we've tackled, and I just wanted it to feel like you're home. I have a quite intense job. I'm a journalist and I travel a lot in difficult environments, and I just wanted to come home and close the front door and it to be my safe place, and the same for my husband and my daughter and this next baby. So yeah, that's why it's hi, sunshine, which is a bit crazy, but I think it works. Over here, I actually started recently making some products working with artisans for things that I wanted for my home but I couldn't find. And I really wanted to have candle sconces, lighting without the electrician's bill and with the ambience. So I designed this zigzag sconce, and this blacksmith in Lincolnshire makes them for me. And yeah, every time I drop them they sell out, which is really exciting. So yeah, this is my proud achievement of my home, I guess. I realised I didn't really have any mirrors in the house. I think that was partly a postpartum thing where I was just not brushing my hair. And then I realised I probably should brush my hair before I leave the house. So I put some mirrors in the hallway, and I picked this one up from an antiques market in London. And I really liked the shape. I think it's an Art Deco one. So out of MDF, I got a circular saw and I mirrored the shape. I cut it in cardboard first, and then I cut it out in MDF and painted it blue to match the hallway. And so I have a little shelf. We've got a LED light, and yeah, our keys. And normally it's more full than this. I cleaned it for you. But yeah, so this is a little happy kind of stop corner before you leave the house. And then I've got this sconce and then this artwork I bought at auction as well. Yeah, I'm a bit obsessed with shopping at auctions, but yeah. In our kitchen, we decided to go for brass worktops, which is a bit unorthodox, and we thought we could mirror that in the hallway. So our side of our electricity cupboard and our step, our riser, has also got brass that we got cut in sheets and stuck on. So kind of adds a bit of light and interest, and also ties in with the kitchen. So come with me to our front room. I think this is my favourite room in the house, actually. It's actually the most neutral room in the house, which is quite unlike me, but I wanted to fill it with colourful things, vintage pieces, and lots of lamps. So when we bought the house, the sash windows had been removed, the fireplace had been removed, the coving and skirting, it was all gone. So we painstakingly put it all back. So we bought this fireplace off like a resale site, might sense a theme here. We got this Victorian cornicing, which I got to match what the neighbours had, so it would be as original as possible. We put the sash windows back in, we put these kind of grand, taller skirtings back in, we put wood floors back down, we used like Zellage checkerboard tiles for the bottom of the fireplace, and then we have these Vitso shelves, which we've had, I think we've had them for like 12 or 13 years, and they've come everywhere with us. So this kind of a collection of random, my husband would say tap, but I would say treasure. And books, lots of like travel books, lots of journalism books, because I'm a journalist. And yeah, lamps everywhere. I mean, you'll struggle to find a corner in this house that can't be lit. So I'm a journalist and I work in TV news. So yeah, news bulletins mostly, so like regular news. I don't have a particular specialism. It has variously been the Middle East, where I've been based, and where my heritage is from. I've been based in Russia as like Moscow correspondent. But now I'm like in London off camera and I travel for big stories, but otherwise I stay home. This room is full of like vintage finds. This Ligne Rose sofa I got for £1 on eBay, which I am so happy with. And it's like a sofa bed and it's really comfy. And then this footstool I made. So I wanted to have something that had like really big ball feet. It didn't really exist, so I got in touch with this wood turner, and he had some leftover like Iroko, so he turned it into the balls I wanted for feet, and then I made the actual footstool out of MDF and upholstered it in this green denim. So this is like a proud achievement for me. We've done a lot of DIY since we got this house, out of necessity, but these are the kind of DIYs that I actually really enjoy. So yeah, this is my creation. And denim is like wears really nicely and is really cheap. So if you ever want to upholster anything and you want it to be really hard wearing, denim comes in loads of colours and it's actually great. This is like a Terence Conran 60s habitat chair. It's actually, this chair is in a design museum in London. Not this particular one, and I got this on eBay. It's like, this is like my cat's and my daughter's favourite place to sit. It might be quite hard for me to get back up now I'm pregnant, but yeah, it's like the corduroys lasted really well. So yeah, some iconic pieces for little budgets. And then here we just have like trinkets. There's this shop in London called Iota Edit. They're also online and they make all of these cool things, like little ceramic fruit. And I went to a class with them and you could like paint your own. So that's one I painted. And I love this garlic. I'd like to get like a whole fruit bowl of these pieces. They're so cute. And this is by a maker called Origo House, and she made like a little portrait of my daughter who's 3, Remy, and she's like makes them out of ceramic. You just send her a picture and frames it like Victorian style, which I think is really cute. And then it's just like family photos, small pieces from artists I love, records. Yeah, that's why this is my favourite room, because it's just full of like little meaningful treasures. I have these really cute ceramic dominoes, which I absolutely love. They're like, this is also from Iota Edit actually. So they're a great little store, and yeah, I love like how they look. I'd like to get more of those. So I also got this vintage zigzag table. This is probably the most dangerous and impractical thing I own, but I'm into zigzags, and I got this steel zigzag table. It's vintage and it's amazing, but then I had a toddler, so it's been bubble wrapped for a while, but now she knows to keep her distance from it because we don't want any scuffed knees. So yeah, maybe when this baby comes, it's going to be in bubble wrap again. But for now, it's like my favourite piece that I own. It's really heavy, it's really cool and brutalist, and it's like one of a kind, which I love. In this room, we mostly like listen to music, listen to records. There's no like TV in here, it's in the snug. So this is like have a drink with friends, have some conversation. Like in a way, it's like the grown-up room. It's got some of the like more artwork in it, more breakable things in it. And my daughter obviously is welcome to come in here, but like there's no toys in here, so this is kind of like the adult space. So come with me into the snug. So this room, as you can see by all the lights on, is really dark. So where this window is where you would have gone out the back door before we did an extension. And a lot of houses in London, like Victorian houses, they would like have that open, so it would be like another hallway. But we didn't want to lose the room by having like a second hallway. So we were like, let's embrace the dark. We like colour drenched the walls, ceiling, skirting, like everything in this like dark green. And then we got the window to bring through some light, but like so that you couldn't walk through, so that they would be, yeah, a full TV room. So this is where you'll find my husband and I after bedtime, after my daughter's bedtime every night. And we picked this colour actually because we got married in November in the Basque Country, and we got married like at the bottom of some mountains, and it was rainy and misty, but it was like really, you know, that kind of like wet green day. So it's kind of reminds us of that colour palette of our wedding. So it's like this cozy, personal, enveloping feeling. And I really love to choose colours like that, like based on memories. I think it's really hard to choose colours from a colour palette. You might be led by trends or like something you've seen on Instagram or Pinterest that might not be something that you'll actually love in years to come. So I like to think of memories and what made me feel like a certain way, and then like look at photos of that time, and yeah, so, and then like lean into those colours. So this and our bedroom is our wedding day in our Basque Country, and you'll see in a minute our kitchen is our honeymoon in Mexico. So this like is a series of happy accidents. I was collecting these fish plates and one of them smashed, so it's like instead of throwing it away, let's just like make it an art piece. This is vintage, like a vintage English lamp, and I painted the lampshade. My husband is super into mezcal, so there's like lots of very niche mezcals here. And then, oh, this is clever actually. Well, clever sounds like I'm bragging, but I think it's a good idea. We wanted to have the TV on the wall, but didn't want to have all the cables, and this fireplace doesn't work. So we channeled a hole like through the chimney, and then it goes into this cabinet. So like the like PlayStation, Apple TV, cables, all of that kind of crap goes in here through the fireplace. So it means like hidden wires, but actually like it looks really cute. And this cabinet is vintage as well. And these handles are like this brand Matilda Goad, which is like this cute British brand, and they have these cute back plates. So we kind of updated it because they were broken. So yeah, and I'm not drinking at the moment because I'm 8 months pregnant, but I'm looking forward to coming here and having some of my husband's mezcal in a month. In this room, again, there were like no original features left, so we restored like the cornicing, but the fireplace wasn't working, so we decided instead to make it like a nook, and we did these checkerboard zellage tiles, and like put kind of a brass edging. And this is actually my daughter's train set. But we've got throws here. Yeah, storage is key. And then we have this artwork, which I feel so lucky to own. It's by this artist called Studio Lenker, and it's one of his really early pieces, and I was lucky enough to buy it from him before he got super big and famous and popular. So very treasured piece. And then a photo that my husband took when I was living in Moscow as Moscow reporter, and he came to visit me, and he took some cute photos. So we've got that, and then this really comfy sofa, which is by Rocket St George, and then another footstool that I made with some Missoni dead stock fabric. So I talk a lot about DIY, but I don't actually enjoy DIY, but I like nice things, and sometimes the only way to get those is to make them yourself. I wish I could show you the before of these rooms. They had not been loved. They had this like a laminate floor, but it was really damaged. There was damp. All of the original features had sadly been like ripped out. So, but they were actually the rooms in the best condition in the whole house. So for a while we were renovating, and it took us a while because we did like 18 months of it DIY, like learning to build stud walls and do tiling, and yeah, it's crazy the skills that we learn. So we actually left these rooms almost till last. We had our fridge in here, and it was like actually one of the cleanest, least mouldy places in the house. So the before of this isn't as bad as the other befores, but the house had been loved. It just had a little period of neglect. So it had that good feeling of like a home that had been loved. It just hadn't been able to be looked after. So hopefully now we've looked after it. And this opening was actually already here, but it was quite simple. So a little hack is we wanted it to be like quite thick and grand, like a Victorian house would have been. So we actually used 2 layers of skirting board to like make this kind of grander thing, because you can't really buy architrave this big, not easily anyway. So we kind of made this ourselves, and then to do the transition we kind of did this like black stripe, which looks a bit like there might be a pocket door there, but there isn't. This is just in here. So in this room the floors had been removed, like the original wood floors. So the closest we got to those was this like engineered oak floor, and we put in underfloor heating. So this was like a splurge, but I love these floors so much. I love that you can see the grain, and they look semi like they've been here as long as the floors might have been. But this house was built in 1890, so upstairs we're actually lucky enough to have all the original floorboards, but unfortunately lots had been pulled out in its 130 years of existence. I'm a bit obsessed with gardening. I feel so lucky to have a garden in London, and I spend a lot of my time growing flowers, and so all of these I picked from my garden yesterday ahead of you coming over. It's all a bit wild, but I'm so proud to have grown all these things. I'm a relative novice, but it brings me a lot of joy. So yeah, these are all from our garden. Do you want to come with me and see the kitchen? Let's go. So welcome to our kitchen. When we first moved in, this actually was a kitchen, but then at the end of the kitchen there was like an accessible bathroom and shower, which we didn't need downstairs. And the view from the garden was like blocked off, and the garden was actually all concrete because they wanted it to be like low maintenance. So we really opened it up, added in these like picture windows, big doors, and this is where we spend most of our time, because we have like a sofa in here, we have this kitchen which I love, and these big windows, so it's always bright. So you can see it's rainy, obviously, because it's London. When we bought the house, it kind of ended here, but the footprint was the same apart from that. So we extended out to the side, and we decided to expose the steel beams, which is now very useful for hanging bananas and drying flowers. And then we get a lot of artwork home from nursery for my daughter, and we do a lot of art here. So this is kind of where I display our kind of family photos and art. So I actually love having this like American style fridge freezer because it's like magnet, crazy artwork heaven. This is the other side of that picture window in our snug, and it's unintentionally turned into the perfect play area for my daughter. She loves like having this, like she always says like this is my area, which is really nice. She's as into flowers as me. She picked those yesterday and put them in her science speakers. It's too cute. So we have, yeah, like her toys, and we don't interfere with her area, and it's actually like worked out perfectly. Yeah, we have a sofa in here. Our kitchen was made by this father-daughter cabinetry maker duo, and so we wanted it to be like birch ply, so it's birch ply, and then the worktops are brass, which some people might hate because they do mark, but I love that like aging patina. So when we first got them, they were like super shiny, and now they're like aging, and I feel like every splash is like, you know, the story of like a drink spilled, or, you know, like with friends, or like dinner for my daughter, or I don't know, I love that like aging. So yeah, we embraced the brass. We used Zellage tiles again. I did this tiling with my dad, so excuse any imperfections, but I'm very proud of it. And then we have like bits and bobs we've collected from holidays, and this is a junk shop find. These we bought in Mexico. These two, they're like Oaxacan clay. So it's just like, it's made by my daughter. So it's just like special pieces to us. My husband's really into knives, so we have the knives proudly on display. They're mostly from Japan. I'm mostly not allowed to use them. The microwave and toaster is like tucked away, the spice is tucked away. So we really thought about how to, like, what we needed to store. We made like a really big list of what we needed to store in the kitchen, and then made sure there'd be a space for everything. Our like worktops are a little bit higher than average because my husband's tall and he does most of the cooking. Lucky me. And then this is like a, you know, like a Montessori tower. It's my daughter's, so she can get involved with cooking, which she does all the time. We do a lot of baking, so, and it's a nice coincidence that it matches the kitchen. Come this way and you'll see where we eat all our meals. So this was the area that was a loo and a shower when we first moved in, and it was in quite the state of disrepair actually. The building was kind of falling down, and when we went to add windows, it did fall down, so we had to rebuild it, but we used the same footprint. And I got this table was actually as old as the house. I got it in an antiques market, and it was made in like the 1890s, and so was the house. So I love that. So my dad built me this banquette out of birch ply to match the kitchen, and we had it upholstered in this green denim, which I love because it ages really nicely. It's easy to zip off and clean, and it's just like really hard wearing for lots of bums. This actually is maybe one of my favourite features in the house, where we've been recording my daughter Remy's height. Look how tall she is, my baby. So I like that even though this is like scratched and done in pencil, we're like, it's the story of our family and this as the current custodians of this home. This artwork is also by Studio Lenka. It's actually a commission. At the time we were in Mexico, and he was like, oh, I'll do an artwork inspired by the Frida Kahlo self-portrait where she's sat on a chair with the dog. So that's his interpretation of that, which I love. These, again, are from antiques markets. They're a copy, actually, of the Willy Gould ones. The real ones are made of asbestos. So the one exceptional to having a copy is those. And then, yeah, this is really messy, but it's where I'm growing all my seedlings to be planted out in the garden later. And then here's like our big back doors, and it's rainy today, so it's not very exciting, but they like, they're bifolds, so they open all the way up to the garden. But our only compromise was we have cats, so there is a cat flap built into the bifolds, don't tell anyone. So they can go out freely. And then this garden was like all concrete before, and now hopefully it's a very well loved space, full of my flowers and lots of snails, really a lot of snails. So when we saw the house and it was all blocked off, like no view to the garden, I knew that like it could be like open to the garden. It could feel like you're eating outside without having to actually risk the British summertime of trying to eat outside. So if you want that like vibe, we can just like open the door, and the table's so close you can almost feel like you're eating outside. And then the lime wash walls are inspired by our honeymoon in Mexico, and we really wanted to feel that like joyful feeling that we had then, so we decided to go with this lime wash. A word of warning on lime wash: it marks really easily, but I kind of embrace those flaws, and I love it anyway. And this like terracotta-y colour is also really flattering, so it's really nice like to like sit here in this light. This is also vintage. Everything is vintage. Yeah, so it's like has that feeling of outdoor, but I still have these voiles. My dad's business is curtains and blinds, so I have the hookup. So he got me these voiles, which I love, because you can still have that like billowing outdoor feeling. Yeah, oh look, we actually, because we live in London, there's always some noise. We actually have the train at the back, which at first I thought would be like a big downside, but it's actually a massive plus because it means we're not overlooked, which is really unusual for London. So instead of having like windows looking at us, there's a train every now and then, but I don't mind that. The garden is a bit unusual because it was a blank canvas, so we were like, what do we want to do? And we decided to build a pétanque court. So actually that gravel bit that you can kind of see in the distance is a pétanque court, like French balls. And we really underestimated how hard it would be to do that. It was like 12 tons of gravel that we had to like hand carry through the house because we've got no side access. And we almost never play on it, but it's nice when we do. So we have like the pétanque court, we have the planting. We built this like terrazzo island, which I tiled with my dad, and we built this like pink bench which I used the lime wash like left over from inside, and then I had upholstered in this bespoke stripe from this cute brand called Colours of Ali, and I used like a blue piping, and then I have this arch which I'm growing grapes over, and I have these veg planters for my daughter, so we're growing beans and strawberries and courgettes, and yeah, it's my happy place. Okay, I'm going to take you upstairs. So this is my daughter's room. She's nearly 3, and it's just full of really sentimental pieces, which I feel like is like my favourite thing for a kid's room. So we have like a tapestry that my mother-in-law started when my husband was born, and she gave it to our daughter, which is like so lovely. And actually a tapestry that my nan and I did, my late nan, when I was really little. An alphabet tapestry by her like great grandma, and a poem, and like just some random nice elephant hooks. So it's like, yeah, full of things that are meaningful to us. These are like handmade alphabet tapestries. I love the less attractive video monitor, but I need to do these things. And yeah, because the teddies are sleeping. This is actually really cute. I'll show you this. It's this box, like a keepsake box from Globetrotter, which is this like great British heritage company, and it has like her birth date and like her name and these cute animals on it, and in it we keep like you know, like all sentimental bits, like some of the things that she's made, like her mittens from hospital. So I love a nice keepsake box, and I like that it doesn't look like, you know, like children's tat. It looks nice for me too. We have this comfy like G-plan chair, which is vintage, and then I got these. My mother-in-law is actually a really talented seamstress, and she made these curtains for us out of some fabric I bought. But the best thing, actually, I feel like with a child's room, you need blackout, and so we have these like these blackout blinds that are like hidden in the frame of the window, and they're so good, and they both come down. So we have the curtains for like aesthetic reasons, and then the less attractive but very practical blackout blinds. Yeah, they're so good. And we have another Globetrotter suitcase there actually above her wardrobe. This wardrobe was my husband's grandfather's wardrobe, so lots of like handed down things in here. And then her toy racks actually are IKEA spice racks. They were like £3 each, and I think they look they're like the perfect size for kids' toys. So there we go, IKEA spice racks. My mother-in-law made this, and her great-grandma made that, and then have this like big map of the world that I've been like putting a sticker on the places that she's been. So yeah, lucky girl. I wish I had travelled as much as her, but she's got 3 or 4 stars on there already. So yeah, and this is the only carpeted room in the house actually. Everywhere else it's floorboards, but she has a carpet, a nice wool, like really comfy carpet. So yeah, and she also has like this, my late nan made. She actually made it before I was even married, and she died before I was pregnant, but she'd like made baby things for when I like one day had a baby. It makes me quite emotional. Anyway, very sweet. And my mother-in-law made this gorgeous quilt. Very lucky, we've got some very talented women in our family. If only I were as talented as them. They're yeah, spectacularly talented. I made that terrible lampshade. This room was originally like going to be a spare room, and then we got pregnant, and I was like, let's make it really like cozy and enveloping, because really she's playing where we are. She's not like coming and playing in her room. She's not that of that age yet. She wants to be like with her mum and dad, and also we want to see her to make sure she's like being safe. So we went for like dark because it's a sleep space, and then she was so lucky to have all these people who love her, who made her these beautiful artworks, who bought this beautiful like handmade mobile. So this room is like a bit of me, but has like lots of playful things for her to look at and enjoy and like learn as well. We have like, we're big into books, she's big into books, and so every evening our routine is to like sit in this chair and we read like multiple stories, and yeah, it's just like ever evolving space for her, which feels really special. So this room, like hopefully everywhere I've shared with you, is a place that I designed so that we could feel like safe and secure at home when so many other things are uncertain. I travel a lot for work, and my husband travels a lot for work, and so home is like truly a sanctuary. We're so privileged to have a home, and I feel so lucky from that. Like both of us had mums who suffered a lot to get us basic things when we were growing up, so I feel like so privileged to have this safe space for my daughter and this baby that's going to be here soon. We don't know if it's a girl or a boy. So the whole idea behind this house is like calm, safe, like joyful, if all those things go together, I don't know. Happy place, and miraculously we've done it on a budget through just like grit and determination to like learn skills that we didn't particularly want to learn and hopefully won't use again, but I'm really proud of what we've achieved.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.